Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of Season 6, I should say, Round 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN and live, of course, exclusively on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark, and it is my great pleasure to bring you to the Mount Olympus of motorsports, right here at what was coined by Sir Jackie Stewart as the Green Hell. 15.7 miles and 170 turns comprise this hellish venue as the Sunday League takes its first ever trip to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Founded originally in 1927 and merged with the GP Strecke in 2002. As mentioned there, 170 turns and 15.7 miles, the largest of any racetrack in existence. A combination of Grade 3 and Grade 1 tarmac is going to make for the toughest round in Sunday League history. Taking a look on board at the moment with Cas van Velzen, the drivers will face off against a brutal, unforgiving, hellish landscape that does not care whose race it promotes or whose race it destroys. There is no higher virtue than a win at the Nordschleife for many GT enthusiasts. So tonight's round will play very heavy credence to these drivers today. Taking a look straight in to the talks of the session regulations, we find ourselves on the first endurance race of the season. 90 minutes of racing, but before that, the same format of a 10-minute free practice, of which you join us in the middle of at the moment, and 20 minutes of qualifying, and given a track that takes roughly about 8 minutes to 8 minutes and 12 seconds to lap, there around some over, some under, we are going to find, realistically here, the speak of only about 2 available laps in qualifying for these drivers at a squeeze. 1 mandatory pit stop, as according to the regulations page on Open Strategy, gives the drivers an open playing field here for what they choose to take on from the pit lane. And taking a look then in towards this round of the championship does introduce the drop points system. Now, it's introduced from after round 3 onwards, so this will be the first round where in which it takes effect. It nullifies 2 of the worst results from the championship standings on both teams, rookies, and overall, and it's a cumulative system that progresses with the season. So what you're about to see when we get on to the talk of these standings isn't a final there. We are working with actually only a third of the available standings and scorings because of the drop point system, but of course, as that scales over the course of the season with plenty more races set to follow, that's going to make a little bit more of a accurate standing by the end of things, hopefully speaking there. The idea is to give the competitors their best chance at against unpredictable odds, such as disconnect outages and technical failures. It's why it was introduced not long after Season 2, where it was a rampant issue for drivers. It's investigated by the stewards team to ensure that it's not being deliberately abused for almost farming DNFs so that you can have your higher results play into your championship fight. So all the drivers still have to, try over the course of the season, and it's administered automatically. Before we get on to the talks of the championship standings, starting things off with the rookies, let's get a quick look as to how far we've come after 62 races. Well, it was 2 more victories for Carlos Disch, so far trailblazing through the season, taking both the sprint and feature win in Silverstone last weekend. And we'll get on to the talks of where that places him in the championship standings not long from now. Also having a look here at the ballast to find that Disch is going to be gaining considerably more weight, now up to a whopping 20 kilos additional weight before balance of performance on his Audi R8. We saw recent drops though as well for Cas van Velzen after heartbreak in the Silverstone feature race, that which we'll get onto a little later on. Getting a look then in towards those championship standings and starting things off with the rookies to find Ian McGowan after his debut in Silverstone, now leading in the rookies, with Richard Claffey in 2nd, Elias de Vos in 3rd, with Patrick Leger in 4th, and Vinicius Gois rounds out the top 5. Gabriel Lavuga on his debut as well makes a joint 6th alongside fellow Lamborghini Konstantinos Chitos, 25.5 points apiece between both of them, and they're only half a point up the road from another joint score here between Joseph Reyes and Pavel Jaschuk, a joint 8th at 25 points. Rounding out the top 10 for the rookies, Vladimir Malarek with BMW. Taking a look into the team's championship, still finds Euro Titans at the head of the table, ahead of 5-Star Esports, but notably CRT Racing's Richard Claffey now finds himself in a 3rd place spot up and ahead of Malwar Racing's George Todd, having dropped under the drop point system. Of course, that will still scale back in his favour over the course of the season, so long as he can consistently place in good results. Team VGN makes 5th with TSRC in 6th, Hispania Racing Nexus in 7th, and Team FBR in 8th, and a joint 9th to round out the top 10, Kafrovic and VEC Esports at 22 points apiece. So taking a look back in towards the session at large here on board with last season's drivers champion, Cas van Velzen, who had a very mixed bag in Silverstone. Of course, podium in the sprint race, but then annihilated by a back marker drifting across the track. over the course of that round. I believe we might actually still have the source on that. Yes, we do. You can see here to the right-hand side of your screen, albeit a bit of crude footage, but that's what happened to him in Silverstone. And it was a very rough weekend for him to wrap things out, but he still stands strong in the championship, and we'll see how that fares to be right now. Looking at the overall Drivers' Championship defined, Tyler Vermaak still in the lead, but by 6 points now over Carlos Disch in second. Cas van Velzen in third with 105 points, so front to back there, 12 points across the whole span of the drivers' podium. Fourth place for Alan Alexander. Richard Claffey in fifth place with 69 points. George Todd in sixth with 58 points. Ian McGowan with 57 points. And Ian Skeen with 51 points. Vinicius Goyce in ninth with 47 points. Rounding out the top 10, Zolt Beefgartner with 42 points. And it's certainly going to be an interesting turn of events now that the drop point system is in effect and we approach what is going to be only a single race in today's event. So no sprint or feature, neither the race 1, 2 and 3 structure of the triple sprint races that we saw earlier in the season at Indianapolis. We will find ourselves with one shot here for these drivers over the course of today's event. Staying on board then with Van Velzen as he makes his way down through, I believe this is Kesselchen at the moment, and we'll get the full track tour over the course of qualifying, taking a look at balance of performance listings where Porsche find themselves with the most advantage, 23 kilos lighter than factory weight. Now that will start to balance out a little bit here for Van Velzen with his own success ballast in play. He still will find himself in the negatives, however, ahead of Mercedes with 16 kilos shed away. Nissan, the last of the weight losses, 2 kilos off of the GTRs. That'll be great news for Pavel Jaschuk. Up into the positives then, McLaren gain a single kilo with Audi gaining 3, Lamborghini gaining 5 and Ferrari gaining 6. Ford gains 7, Bentley gained 13 and BMW and Aston Martin find themselves joint heaviest under BOP regs with 15 kilos added on. Now this will be a bit more of a mixed bag for drivers, especially up in towards the top 10 of the championship with that success ballast in play, but that's the baseline we're working from here on the BOP changes, and then it will go on a more introspective level from driver to driver. And taking a look then through the last couple of races this season, saw 2 more victories for Carlos Disch, but also on his debut to the rookies, Ian McGowan took back-to-back victories in Silverstone at both the sprint and feature race. Right now then in the rookies so far, Leger, De Vos, Claffey, Goyce and McGowan make your 5 current race winners, whereas Disch, Vermaak, Alexander are your current overall winners. So far, though, in 3 rounds, I would say this has been a rather interesting turn of events because we have had 3 rounds, 3 winners, albeit not necessarily in the same structure one would expect, with Alexander claiming on that 3rd of 3 available race wins over in Indianapolis at round 2 of the championship. And so taking a look on with, into the wall there for Van Velzen. So very early troubles just as he makes his way up towards, I believe this is Schwunghugel we're seeing here, as he was not too far from Flansgarten's Spy. That's Van Velzen into the wall, so on board here with Fate Galaxy. Now, this has been a very curious turn of events here for Fate Galaxy. His recent move over towards BMW. This was going to be our next talking point here. It was quite the crowd splitter to see the Austrian talent departing from Audi so soon. After failing to recuperate on the kind of performance he had with Ford last season, he's looking to meet things in the middle here with the sharper around the edges M4. What better machine than to bring here to the Nordschleife? Of course, over the course of its now nearly a century in operation since 1927, the Nürburgring's premier series, the one that it's possibly best known for, has been the Nürburgring 24 Hours and its adjacent Nürburgring Langstrecke series, which only came around in the 1970s. 1970 was the first ever N24. 1977 saw the first round of the Nürburgring Langstrecke series. In the Nürburgring 24 Hours, BMW hold the cards as the most amount of race wins in that prestigious event. One of the highest possible accolades for an endurance race is a win here at the Nürburgring. At the end of free practice, really not a lot of time to play with here today. The drivers will find themselves squeezed for time over the course of qualifying, and things could really turn into somewhat of a qualifying shootout here at the Nürburgring in our first ever visit with the Sunday League grid. Making our way then down towards the line for Fate Galaxy, as we are swift to get into the talks on qualifying here. Of course, 20 minutes as we were told, but if anything does change, we'll let you know. In towards the pit lane goes the number 55, and so far so good. A good sighting lap there from the 55 back into the paddock at the end of free practice. And taking a look then to find there are plenty of drivers returning to the field. Of course, Levi Warner is back on the grid now as well. The last time we saw him was with Ford. We do now get in towards the talks of qualifying here in round 4 of Season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League. Barreling out of the paddock there, we saw right off the bat go Cas van Velzen, and it's worth noting that is definitely, yes, signs of rain. Damp conditions on track at the moment. You can see a little bit of water being kicked up behind that Porsche, and this could add quite a fair bit of flavour to this qualifying session here. We'll catch back on with our new drivers a little later on, but seeing with Van Velzen first out of the gates, and we'll be catching on with him for the talks of that first flying lap to get ourselves acclimatized here to the infamous Nürburgring Nordschleife. Taking a look then in towards the qualifying predictions only gives us data for currently 9 cars of what is now an over 20 car grid. Fake Galaxy on his move over towards BMW seems poised for pole position, so heavy prospects riding on the line there for the number 55 now on his departure from Audi. Van Velzen on screen at the moment looking at second with Carlos Diesch in third, Brooklyn Donkin looking at fourth with Ian Skeen in fifth, Michael Harris looking at 6th with Alan Alexander in 7th, Ben Schiessman in 8th, and Konstantinos Chitos rounds out our available data for 9th place. You can see from front to back there a disparity of about 23 seconds, and I think that could have played a bit of a part here, as we were told of changeable conditions in the testing sessions over the course of this week coming in towards tonight's round. We just saw there, subscribing with Prime in chat was Ian Skeen. We do see, though, for Cas van Velzen, something changed there. A little spark of intuition from the number 1. He's back into the paddock. A curious footnote, then, as we do see a rather hesitant performance all round from the paddock to try and get out on track. Of course, time is money here at the Nürburgring. And we have noted for quite a fair few drivers there a few memory issues and software issues. Now, that is a prevalent factor here at the Nürburgring. A track this large can pose quite a bit of stress on the CPU for the Xbox Series S consoles we're aware of. And we here at TRTN no longer have that issue. We recently moved over towards the Series X, but that still presses an issue. And it's not only this track, Spa as well also has that same issue. We're on board then with Brooklyn Donkin going to catch on board with the BMW. We just see there from Cody Zarfel a bit of trouble as he gets on to the first of his flying laps. But on board here with the number 17, making our way down through the Yokohama S's. So Brooklyn Donkin looks to be our tour guide here at the Nürburgring, getting on into the first of our flying laps with the number 17. On board then with the BMW down through to the forward curves here as we ride along a shortened version of the GP Strecker. You'll note one of the major changes between this and the GP circuit, which we have visited many a time here on the Sunday League, was the removal of the Mercedes Arena section. That first complex of corners immediately hooks now over to the left, just after what would be turn 1 in any other situation, as the Yokohama S's prevail. Now through Dunlop, up to the Michael Schumacher S's. From that point onwards, that first sector is really all that changed on the GP side of things. It's only until you get down towards turn 16 on the what would have been the GP layout. Of course, with a few corners cut away there, we'll find ourselves a little under that number where you'd actually start to see any differences. So what would have been the Coca-Cola curve is actually going to come round to the left as we exit Bitten Warsteiner on our way to the Hatzenbecksbogen, up towards the Vidal chicane. Fortunately for these drivers, they're not using the alternative NGK chicane, which was used in the Eiffel Grand Prix. Very sharp, squared off, double 90. Goes left, then right. You can see it there to the left-hand side of Donkin as he makes his way through Vidal. Now in towards the Nordschleife itself. An advisory then for any of our German fans. The German you're about to hear was not performed by a professional. I've still yet to take any classes on that, so do forgive me for perhaps butchering a few of these words. Making our way then into the Hatzenbach section to start things off on the Nordschleife. This possibly the most recognizable section of the Nürburgring. Anyone who's attempted to lap this circuit knows what this section looks like, because this is the starting point for every prospective lap, no matter the discipline here for the Nürburgring. We still note then damp conditions as we make our way through this winding section here. Difficult to get side-by-side, barely sustainable for side-by-side racing on most regards here, but it's this Herculean challenge the drivers rise to at the Nürburgring that keeps them coming back. Now out through to the Kittelbacher Hohe off the exit of Hoheneichen and up towards the Flugplatz, where if you go fast enough, the front end will lift ever so slightly. Now through Flugplatz, very fast double right-hander. Through to the left-hander now at Cottonbourne, heading up towards Schwedenkreuz. So down through Cottonborn we go. There's this dip now coming back up over the crest up towards Schwedenkreuz, and you can also get airborne here if you're in the dirty air of another driver. Down through Schwedenkreuz in towards Poststrasse and Arenberg, or it's Arenberg first, then Poststrasse. This very sharp right-hander, heavy braking zone here. Plenty of overtaking opportunities for close racing today. That will certainly be seen over the course of the first of our laps in this 90-minute race. In through to Fuchsrohr, up towards what is a very popular section for viewing. If you've seen many videos of the Nürburgring on YouTube, you'll know this section coming up here, the Adenauer Forst. This S-bend section here, very sharp on entry, deceptively so. It's what's led many people on the Teustenfahrten running out wide in what I'd say quite a far cry from the race cars we see on track today. Out through the Adenauer Forst, in towards Metzgerfeld we go, into this sort of forest section of the track, as I've called it. No idea if there is actually an official name for this whole area of the track we're coming into, but you see the trees stack high on either side here, obscuring the horizon, so it's really a tunnel effect for these drivers. This is what can really help them achieve a bit of a flow state in these qualifying sessions, and so far, Brooklyn Donkin has took to the challenge rather impressively so. In through then, the run of things at Kallenhardt up towards Verseifen. It's got a few corners to go there. This section is killer for these drivers. They can get caught out very easily, getting too handsy with those curbs on the inside. That will knock the car all the way out to the left. Now making our way down through Verseifen to open hairpin left here. A little sharper on exit as it does hook back into this very sharp right-hander. Following now through to Exmüller and now the Ausfahrt-Breitscheid. You see there, you drop down from those curbs and the amount of rebound the car has, it bounces its way back to form. Now on the exit of the Ausfahrt-Breitscheid, making our way up towards Bergwerk. You see how quickly that qualifying session's ticked by. We've not actually seen one lap in yet from these drivers. We're still watching one in progress from Brooklyn Donkin, making our way through Bergwerk up towards Kesselchen. This high-speed section of the track here. The Nürburgring Nordschleife used to be the home of the German Grand Prix until the fated events there of the 1976 German Grand Prix, which left Niki Lauda irreversibly scarred and ultimately took the event off the calendar. It was too dangerous a race to run for Formula One. Formula One wouldn't return to the Nürburgring until the 1980s with the introduction of the GP Strecke. Its last race was in 2020 as the Eifel Grand Prix. Out through Mudkurve. In through to Klostertal, now into Steilstrecke as we make our way up towards the Caracciolo Carousel. Otherwise, just the carousel. We mentioned before with Hatzenbach that was possibly the most iconic section. I think we'd have to reconsider that as we make our way in through easily the most photogenic zone of the Nürburgring Nordschleife here at the carousel. Making his way through. So far, so good for Brooklyn Donkin. He's not put a foot wrong thus far, making his way up towards Hohe Acht. This uphill chicane brings us into what is one of my personal favourite sections of this track, as things start to get very winding and almost ribbon-like on this track as we make our way out through Wippermann in towards Eschbach. So up through Wippermann now, in towards the run of things at, this is Wippermann now. So that was up through Hedwigshöhe, my mistake. Now we're in towards Eschbach. In towards Brünchen, another very popular zone here to be seen online. That gravel trap off to the driver's left-hand side, our right-hand side from the camera's point of view, off the exit of Brünchen in towards Eiskurve. Rounding through Eiskurve in towards Pflanzgarten 1. This brings us up into Sprunghügel, which is an area, we mentioned a few areas before Schwedenkreuz and Flugplatz where the drivers would get airborne, but there you get to see it, and it's an almost guarantee at Sprunghügel as we make our way into Pflanzgarten 2. And the drivers have also said that this is among their favourite sections also because this is an area where you can keep your foot firmly buried in the floor. Very technical section there. Winds back in on itself, making our way in towards the Schwabenschwanz. Now making our way in towards the second of two carousels, the Kleiner Carousel. A literal translation of little carousel. Making our way to Galgenkopf then as we begin the run onto the longest straightaway section on this track. We've seen some high-speed sections before from the run through Kottenborn and Schwedenkreuz, then Kesselchen and Mutkörper, but as we enter here the Dottinger Hohe, this is the longest straightaway section we have at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. It's where straight line speed will come into factor for these drivers. Now, bringing up the speed, of course, this was on the real extreme end of things. In GT3, we got this from the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, but it still does play quite heavy, factoring into who could rule over this section of the track, keeping an eye then towards primarily, I would say, Ford and BMW in tonight's race. It's worth keeping an eye out also, though, for Bentley in the hands of Alan Alexander. He's already made Bentley race winners this season. Became the second ever driver to do so after Hayden Proger in Season 5, Round 10. Making his way then down through to Tiergarten after Antonius Bucher and down towards the line then Brooklyn Donkin, the first of our times, onto the charts today, and as it stands to be the case, he will have enough time for one more lap here at the Nürburgring, and across the line he goes. Our baseline time 8 minutes 34.635. Bear in mind, changeable conditions have played a heavy factor on this one today. Across the line to start their flying lap goes Levi Warner, and nearest to the line as it stands to be the case right now, having a look down through the order, see one of the new drivers here in the reserve category. Then up in front of him we saw across the line went, I believe that was the number 696. This is Leon Forberg, who was set to make his arrival at round 1 of the championship, but better late than never here for Forberg. And so whilst we've got some time here between the next chunk of flying laps, let's introduce ourselves to some of the new drivers on today's grid. Of course, we mentioned not too long ago, Levi Warner is back on the grid. Last time we saw him was with Ford in his infamous standoff in Laguna Seca against two-time champion Melvin Milliston. It was the closest finishing margin for a race win we had ever seen in Sunday League history, but now we see that Levi Warner of Fats GT Esports returns with Lamborghini this time around. Currently in the reserve categories, he'll go up into the overall championship in the current block of, I would say, quote-unquote pro drivers, and I say that because that isn't actually officially what they're called, but this is a driver with experience on the Sunday League grid before. It's great to see him back into things. Of course, we are in the off-season at the moment between Season 10 and 11 of Fats GT's GT3 Championship, of which has now been greenlit for Season 11. If you saw any of our posts on social media or their social media recently, you would have seen the announcement come on through. We also have another new driver here, number 100 McLaren of Opala Torres with McLaren at this time. We do note there a few jitters with disconnect problems, I believe that was. We also get to see the second of our times in now, number 46, Vladimir Malarek of the Rookies Championship with BMW. Part of that top 10, as we discussed in the championship standings not too long ago. Nearest to the line looks to be that of Alan Alexander for Euro Titans Endurance Bentley. Of course, won in Indianapolis earlier this season at race 3. Let's see what can he do here at the Nürburgring. And he goes up to the fastest time, and it's not by a close margin, I'd say. It's 6.923 seconds between himself and his teammate Brooklyn Donkin. So having a look there where Donkin put in a very respectable time. It was a very steady footing. It's been a case here where Alan Alexander has properly caned it throughout this track, all 170 turns, commandeered by the 315. 991 is nearby to the line, up in front of him when the number 100. Ian Skeen across the line then with Aston Martin fastest by 0.8 of a second. So a surprise turnaround then. We did get to see there was the glimmers of intuition in the eyes of Cas van Velten when he came back into the pits. We now see him on his way down through to Tiergarten. Came back into the pits, and I think we can start to piece together as to why that was. Fast conditions on track where he originally thought maybe it could have been wet tyre conditions. No, he went back onto the dries, back across the line. Goes Van Velten. Where does he find himself? Fastest by 4.3 seconds. So far, Euro Titans 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this session today. Nearest to the line, Zolt Beefgartner back on the grid for TSRC Esports. Lexus in through Antonius Bucher now to Tiergarten. The Lexus, a formidable machine in every respect. We've waxed lyrical about the RCF over many a broadcast. This is among the best drivers we've seen to take to it on this grid. Second fastest there for Beefgartner, now ahead of Skeen, Alexander and Donkin, and breaks the toe of what was a 1, 2, 3, 4 there for Euro Titans. TSRC Esports has a point to prove here in the Nürburgring. Nearest to the line, Gabriel Lavuga of ISR Motorsports. Now, it was a mixed bag weekend for him. Of course, once at a certain point stood at the head of the rookies in, I believe it was the feature race, but sadly that never came to fruition for him. The Austrian talent makes his way in towards Tiergarten now with Lamborghini. We'll see what he can do. Of course, the current benchmark is a time, in the rookies at least, is a time set by Vladimir Malarex. As it stands to be the case, there was about 9 minutes 23.7 roughly. On his way to the line, though, what can Lavuga make of it? With Lamborghini across the line he goes, and goes second fastest overall, so into the lead of the rookies, but second overall ahead of Beefgartner. Number 93 is nearest, of course, Richard Claffey, multiple-time rookies winner now after Indianapolis. Sadly, the results failed to materialize for even more wins in Silverstone, with back-to-back wins for Ian McGowan. We'll see, though, in the absence of McGowan thus far, what can Claffey make of things here with the recent challenge from newcomer to the grid, Gabriel Lavuga? Now, we've seen Porsche to be plenty capable enough in the hands of Cas van Velzen, and Claffey's no slouch either, making his way towards the line here. Number 93, looking for a chance at leading the rookies, only goes up to 6th place there, but he's ahead of Brooklyn Donkin and Vladimir Malarex division, second for the rookies at the moment. Nearest is the 55, and this is quite the groundbreaker here. Fate Galaxy's controversial move away from Audi to BMW. Bear in mind, he takes a significant points penalty for swapping vehicle in the middle of the season. Galaxy through Tiergarten was predicted at pole position right now. Time to beat 8 minutes 22.517 in changeable conditions set by Cas van Velzen, his teammate at Euro Titans. What can Galaxy make of it? Down towards the line we go, and goes fastest by 4 seconds there, 4.050 over Van Velzen's time to an 8 minutes 18.467. Fake Galaxy took a gamble, and he's hit the jackpot with BMW here in the Nürburgring. That's fantastic news for him at the moment. We do find, though, plenty of drivers still stranded without a time, but plenty of them still making the efforts to lap. Cody Zarfel of Hurry Racing makes his way down the Dottinger. One thing that I would say is quite a curious case is so far no time set by Tyler Vermaak. He's took to the session very late on here with 5-star Esports McLaren. In towards the Schwalbenschwanz he goes. We have noted as well, I believe, yes, was an incident between the 1 and I want to say, is that the 87? Yes, another new driver to the field here, Nick Lamming from Race Club UK. We notably saw him alongside Race Club UK's performance over on the Shooting Stars Cup, of which we wrapped up only a few weeks ago. Back onto the conversation of Cody Zarfel, however, makes his way through Tiergarten. Next onto the timing charts, as it would appear. And from behind him, the number 14 of another new driver to the field as well. Some of them having been already categorized as part of the Rookies Championship. Cody Zarfel to 9th. And we see new driver here, Jared Vermeulen, number 14 then, part of the same lineup as Paul Vidler, who is also on the grid today. And it's Vermeulen fastest. I mean, that one we were not expecting here. Jared Vermeulen, fastest in the rookies and fastest outright. The South African talent, number 14, 8 minutes 16.375. That is quite the head turner. Tyler Vermaak to the line. What does he make of things here with 5-star across the line? He goes to 3rd, 5.3 seconds off of Vermeulen. Across the line from behind him went the number, I believe that was the number 10 at this time. Do we have a number 10? I believe, yes, we do. Still trying to figure out who precisely. I am reading that correctly, and I'm not just misreading that there was an imaginary number in the mix there. No, it was definitely a number 10 of sorts. See, Carlos Deesh also yet to have set a time, and this is a very curious case for him at the moment. He's come out very late to the session. And yes, it was the number 10. It was Paul Vidler that was behind Tyler Vermaak at this time. His teammate, Jared Vermeulen, now fastest in the Nürburgring in a surprise turnaround for Apex Online Racing Pro. These two technically part of the same team, though it would have suggested there on SimGrid that this one is uncategorized. We do have more than enough evidence to suggest the opposite, as Vermeulen is part of that lineup, just not officially on this grid for some reason. That will be clarified later on, I imagine. We've had that happen before. We've had sad news then from one of the drivers trying to join in for his debut to the Sunday League, that being Marek Klops. You would have seen him last night over on the HCCR Multiclass Championship. He was looking to make his debut today with Audi, but due to video memory issues, he's unable to compete in tonight's event. We do see what looks What was, I believe, looking to have been one last attempt at it here, but Klopp, sadly, as it looks to be the case, will not compete in tonight's event. The 95, we're trying to catch on board with them here, but I'm pretty sure that's been the nail in the coffin. Sadly, one Audi down in today's event. You see the other of the two Audis so far, the 54th Carlos Tisch, and he's really looking to ride the line here. The 54, still no time set, is currently in the GP Strecker, so looking to go the long distance here, and I think it may very well represent a case that unless he has already completed his outlap, that's going to be the end of the road for him. He's not going to put a time in here in qualifying. Fake Galaxy second. Leon Forberg, a recent join to the top 5 then on his debut drive to the season. The number 696 of Forberg, representing the Forbergs in the team's championship, finds himself third and second in the rookies behind Jared Vermeulen. That's third with the introduction of Patrick Leger. Back in swing of things here. After a bit of a hiatus in the Rookies Championship, Leger is back. Otherwise, I believe it might also be pronounced Patrick Leger. Again, not very good with Dutch, so my apologies there to the number 9. If you think I'm any better with German, you're in for quite the shock today. Making our way down through to Tiergarten then. Alan Alexander, a bit of a slide from him there, a bit of a bounce thereafter. Can the Bentley find ground amongst the top 10 after the conditions have gotten a bit drier around the edges here for the Bentley across the line? He goes up to 7th at the end of qualifying. And this is going to be a very chaotic race if what we are seeing is true here. We, of course, have still plenty of drivers out lapping the track. The end of session marker might catch a fair few of these drivers out. We see Levi Warner still lapping here with Fatch GT, moving away from Ford and over to Lamborghini. We'll be seeing plenty more of Levi Warner and fellow Fatch GT drivers later on, I believe this month, as a matter of fact, when we get back into season 11 of Fatch GT, after what was a fantastic season of coverage over on season 10. That saw Gianluca Candarella, its champion, the first ever Italian driver to take Fatch GT's championship title in the drivers. Making his way then through Hedvig Soa, out through Wippermann. Begins the run in towards Eschbach and Brunchen, heading up towards the final sectors of the Nordschleife itself. As it stands to be the case right now, he'll be the nearest driver to set a unique time here. As right now, it stands to be the case on a real shock turnaround on his debut to this series. Jared Vermeulen, the number 14 for Apex Online Racing Sim. Or Racing Pro, I should say, not Sim. I've been confusing that with Team Raceline. With Apex Online Racing Pro, takes a very surprising pole position. Of course, we don't have much of a baseline to go off with a lot of the new drivers on the grid. Now, with drivers that are making their debut to Sunday League, but we've seen before, you can definitely make a more estimated argument over drivers like Patrick Leger, like that, for example, of Levi Warner. Like, for example, also that of Richard Claffey. These are drivers we've seen in other series before their Sunday League debut. We know roughly what to expect. This is a driver that has entered our radars unknown. I'm sure we're going to remember the name today if his racing performance is as good as his qualifying today. 8 minutes 16.375 by Vermeulen, fastest over Leger in the rookies and over Galaxy overall, who heads up the normal field of drivers. Of course, that doesn't get classified by itself. That will count towards the overall standing, as it happens to be the case right now. In our first ever qualifying session at the Nordschleife, a brand new pole sitter. And it could give Ferrari, we explained this point in Silverstone, when George Todd was eerily close to the lead of the race in the closing laps in the feature. Ferrari, in the 62 races of the NLRL Sunday League, have never once seen a victory outright. So this could really be quite the shift around here for Jared Vermeulen. I've just seen there in Twitch chat as well, and I haven't actually clocked this, but I also do quite hope that the formation lap is just the last corner. I'm hoping they haven't looped the settings from last week, because we might be here a while over the course of that formation lap. But if it does happen to be the case, then that gives us a wonderful opportunity to go and grab a drink and maybe put on an ad break. But let's hope that that's not the case, and we'll be starting down just off the exit of the Dottinger Hohe in towards Antoniusbucher and Tiergarten, the end of the track. Across the line, not too long ago, went Levi Warner to 13th overall in the session, as that stands to be the case in the rookies. That's a Division 6th for the number 4. Not the rookie, sorry, he's not a rookie. I keep getting that confused. This one is a rare case where we see a reserve driver who is not a rookie, so he just stands in 13th place. Nearest to the line is the 14 then, Jared Vermeulen, the driver who has wowed expectations on his debut to the Sunday League, makes his way up through the Kleiner Carousel and up towards the run of Galgenkopf with Ferrari. Could this be the arbiter of Ferrari's fate today to finally see them among the winning ranks of the NLRL Sunday League? Making his way through Galgenkopf and on to the Dottinger. When we take a look back at the winning manufacturers in the past on the Sunday League, McLaren, BMW, Aston Martin, Lexus, Ford, Mercedes, Porsche and Bentley have all taken race wins, with Bentley being among the most recent in Season 5, Round 10, courtesy of Hayden Prodger's performance, and then followed up this season in Race 3 at Indianapolis, Round 2 of the championship by Alan Alexander. Ferrari still have yet to find a driver who can deliver them a victory in this series. Could they have found it in the form of South African talent Jared Vermeulen? He makes his way to the line. Bear in mind his own time to beat here. 8 minutes 16.375. The 14 down towards the line here in the Nordschleife. Goes another fastest time. Goes over his personal best to a new fastest. And 8 minutes 14.555. A remarkable turn of events then. The Ferrari raised the bar and then kicked it a few feet higher. This is brutal from the newcomer to the field. 37 across the line, Gabriel Lavuga to 4th. In preferable conditions, the Lamborghini blossoms here at the Nürburgring. 4th overall, 3rd in division. Nearest to the line, the number 10, so it's the teammate of the number 14 of Jared Vermeulen, Paul Vidler, to the line. Where does he find himself? In 11th. Standing in then at a rookie's top 5 start, but just outside of the overall top 10. Number 55 is nearest. Can there be a turn of fortune here for BMW's Fate Galaxy on his move away from Audi Sport? He already set in a very impressive start to the session, one that we didn't think initially could be thwarted, but little were we expecting the performance of both Leger and Vermeulen. But what can Galaxy do here on his swan song drive in this qualifying session? Across the line he goes, needs 3.9 seconds and goes fastest by a 10th over Vermeulen. We thought that the bar could not be kicked any higher, and my word, right from behind him by less than a 10th. It's Cas van Velzen on 2nd place. Vermeulen relegated from the front row by 2 serious heavy hitters in recent memory. Van Velzen, who's been around for upwards of 3 seasons. Fate Galaxy, who made his debut last season, now make that front row. Carlos Disch makes the top 5 for Audi Sport ahead of Patrick Leger. Number 696 is nearest, so here comes Leon Forberg and rounds the qualifying out there 7th and Division 4. Still a very admirable drive on his debut to the Sunday League. The 696 on the 2nd row of rookies alongside Gabriel Lavuga. Across the line went the number 100 there. That's Joris. Now into 15th in this session. From behind, the 599 across the line a moment ago, and that was for that of Zolt Beefgartner to go 5th fastest ahead of Leger. Now relegating him from the top 5, leaving Jared Vermeulen as the only rookies driver to be stuck into that top 5. Now surrounded on all sides there by Galaxy, Van Velzen, Disch and Beefgartner. That's a heavy set of drivers to go toe-to-toe with in the top 5 there, so he has really got himself knee-deep in it now. This is going to be very, very interesting to see how Vermeulen takes to the challenge, but what a qualifying session we've had then. Fate Galaxy on pole position and Jared Vermeulen on debut then to a rookies division pole position after qualifying today. A brilliant turn in qualifying, plenty of twists and turns on what we were originally expecting to not actually yield too many drivers at all. We wait then for the grid to form up, and we are still dreading whether or not we'll actually see a full formation lap. I think we'll know conclusively that answer depending on where they decide to queue up. And I am very worried. Oh no, I think I know what's going on here. Oh, well, this is going to be a certainly interesting formation lap, folks. I hope you're geared up for, how long does it normally take to lap the track? Oh yeah, 8 minutes, 8 minutes 12, 8 minutes 13. Yeah, we're not going to be doing that. That's going to be plenty longer as we get in towards the talks of the first endurance race of the season. And starting things off then is looking to be the longest formation lap of the season. Oh no, this is going to be a very interesting day for these drivers. Well, you know, look on the bright side. You can certainly... can we not do the cut, says Ben Hart? I don't know. I've never been in this situation before, but I guess we're going to have to find out. So, before we get into the talks of the grid today, let's get a look on towards the news and spoilers ahead for those who have not seen today's action from the British Touring Car Championship or Formula One. And taking a look straight into the article of news today then, in the BTCC, Dan Camish, Ash Sutton, and Charles Rainford win in rounds 10, 11 and 12 at the Alton Park circuit. A brilliant triad of rounds in changeable conditions in this weekend's instalment of the 2026 Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Brilliant result then for Napa Racing UK Ford. And a great result right at the very end then at race 3 for West Surrey Racing BMW. Taking a look into Formula 1, Andrea Kimi Antonelli wins the Monaco Grand Prix amidst a very hectic round, rife with engine failures and crashes. It's been a very, very tough Monaco GP for the Italian talent, but he continues to trailblaze the season, looking to be that of championship material not too long from now. As we race towards the halfway mark of the season, Kimi Antonelli seems all but unstoppable. And so, with about a minute before the start of the formation lap, what is likely to be among the longest in the season, unless the drivers are allowed to do that cut, I really could not tell you. I would say, in the air of interest, maybe don't do that, because we could have a few problems if drivers attempt it. Looking at the front of the field then, Fake Galaxy on pole position with Cas van Velsen in second, Jared Vermeulen in third with Carlos Diesch in fourth, Zolt Beefgartner in fifth, and Patrick Leger in sixth, Gabriel Lavuga in seventh, Leon Forberg in eighth, Tyler Vermack in ninth, and Alan Alexander rounds out the top 10. Brooklyn Donkin in 11th with Paul Vidler in 12th, Ian Skeen in 13th, and Levi Warner on his return in 14th. Joris in 15th, Zarfel 16th, Malarek 17th, Hart in 18th, Belder 19th, and Lamming rounds out the top 20. DeVos in 21st, rounding out a 22-car grid, then 11 either side of it is Pavel Yaschuk with Nissan. About to get on then with the pole sitter, Fake Galaxy, who'll go toe-to-toe with Cas van Velsen and newcomer to the grid, Jared Vermeulen, in that top 3 for the start. Silence
30 seconds
on the grid for but a moment before it comes alive with the sound of 22 engines firing in unison. You could already begin to hear the low rumble of engines firing up here. 6 cylinders, 10 cylinders, 8 cylinders, all firing up, all waking up what is going to be a very exciting round here at the NLRL Sunday League. Our first ever visit to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Maybe a bit of a longer start than we would have been previously expecting. This does give us the opportunity to stay on board with these drivers, get a little bit of a conversation through on what to expect coming up later on into the week following, as we do have a few words on that. Taking us away then into the formation lap goes Fake Galaxy. And we are gearing up for the long run here. One of the longest formation laps in Sunday League history. I believe a bit of an oversight there by race control. I don't believe they were expecting this to have happened, but ho-hum, you've got to go to war with what you have. Taking a look at where we'll be over the course of the next week coming then. Later on next week, on Tuesday, we have the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series Season 6 Round 1. We get into the first round of their brand new installation of the Sprint Cup EU Series, reeling away from what was part-time coverage of Season 5 on Wednesday morning, technically Tuesday evening local time, with the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series Season 4 Round 2 after a brilliant opening round in Valencia. On Friday, we get the first round of the Orange Line Racing X VSR Porsche Super Cup Series Round 1. And on Saturday, we have the High Caliber Community League Multi-Class Championship Finale of Season 4. Of course, we saw racing not too long ago then in the penultimate round at Donington. We head to the circuit Paul Ricard at the final round of the championship to wrap things up. And so this is going to be... Oh, no, it's been a bit of trouble for the drivers right off the bat then if they weren't expecting rain and they've got onto those dries. This formation lap is about to give them plenty of reminder that they should have got onto those wet tyres. I wasn't expecting rain for this race. I think Weather Radar still had it pitched that it could have been changeable conditions, but we are looking at a nightmare fuel combination for these drivers as we are facing off against our first ever visit on this grid to the Nordschleife. I'm sure plenty of these drivers have visited the track before this point, but not in the collective they are now and under these regs. And now, not only do we visit the Nordschleife for the first time, but we have a wet race. So you can already get the semblance here that beaming ear to ear at this information is now the 315 of Alan Alexander. He loves a good wet race. We've seen plenty of times before that he's been more than capable when the tarmac starts to get a bit wet. And it shall plenty be the case here at the Nürburgring. So going to find that 315 to see where he is at the moment. Stands in 10th behind Tyler Vermack and Leon Forberg. He's up ahead, though, of Brooklyn Donkin and Paul Vidler. This could get very rough for these drivers. Now, I'm still not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it is a case, though, that we have to do the full Nordschleife. So this is going to be a bit of a long haul for the drivers today. As we do get geared up then in towards 90 minutes of racing. Making our way then up towards the Coca-Cola curve as we begin the run onto the Nordschleife then. And this is going to be quite a long run then, folks, but the drivers will have plenty of time to scope out the track. We see Sergio Belda has come back into the pit lane, the number 74 now starting from the paddock for Holcianos Motorsports. We'll leave you on board with the sights and sounds of the number 55 BMW heading up the field, and we'll return to you in a moment's time. And so then, as we are back on with the number 55 on pole position then for round 4 of season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. On our first ever visit to the Nordschleife, let's take a look at what the road ahead will have for our drivers. After today's round of the championship, we have a week's break, so you won't be seeing any racing from us on the 14th of June. You'll have to wait a week thereafter to the 21st when we head to the Donington Park circuit, back onto the standard format that we saw at Silverstone and Spa earlier this season, as we head into the halfway mark of the season 2 weeks from now. Then heading into the second half of the season, the week thereafter Donington, we head to Barcelona and then to Imola. Then at round 8, we head back to the Mount Panorama circuit for our next endurance race of the season, one of only 2 so far in Season 6. Red Bull Ring, round 9 of the championship, then rounding out the last of the rounds will be on the 26th at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. So that is currently the look of the championship calendar as we make our way out through Holstrasse. Major overtaking zones here at the Nürburgring. I mean, you'd be looking at the entirety of that GP circuit, but more specifically down at the Dunlop curve, turn 7. You'll also be taking a look roughly in towards Yokohama for those who dare to try it on that opening lap. I'm sure we'll see plenty of examples leading into that first S-bend at turns 1 and 2. I'd also say keeping an eye out there for Bitten Warsteiner. What would normally be turns 12 and 13 on the GP Strecker, but it's a few numbers lower there with the removal of the arena section, so that won't play a part in our predictions for overtaking opportunities in towards the Vidal and then up through to the Nordschleife entrance itself, or what would have been Coca-Cola curve, instead hooking around to the left on towards the Hatzenbach section. I'd say to keep an eye out there as well. Drivers close enough could certainly go for the inside and then follow that one up on the first of our corners into the Nordschleife as we begin the run through the Hatzenbach section proper. Auerenberg and Polstrasse as well as the exit there just before it of Schwedenkreuz. Definitely want to keep an eye on out through the run of Flugplatz in towards taking a look here, I believe it is, yes, Cottonbourne. Almost said Kesselchen. That's on the opposite end of the track. But it's worth keeping an eye out for that area as well, especially on the run in towards the Mudkurve, Klostertal and Steilstrecke further down the track. But before that, Veersiphon and Alsfart Breitscheid also worth keeping an eye for. Adenauer Forest is a bit of a 50-50. Very sharp curves, not a lot of usable space there on the inside. So it is a bit of a coin toss. And we see Ben Hart in chat saying, am I the only one on slicks? Possibly. You know, I'd certainly say there's a likely chance. Sadly, with these Pirellis, they don't have different colours on these sideboards, so we can't actually gauge who's on what. I'd say gauging off the fact that these two haven't spun themselves out yet is certainly an argument to be made that the majority of the front runners are on those wet tyres, and I think they definitely would have made a gamble worth taking here if they decided well before the start of this formation lap to go on to those wet tyres. If not, we're about to see a very busy scramble to the pit lane for that race start. Making our way in towards, looking here, the run at Veersiphon and through to Exmuller. It was conditions much similar to this that created the infamous events of the 1976 German Grand Prix, the very race that removed the Nürburgring for upwards of a decade from Formula One circulation. The GTs are a little bit more clear-cut for wet racing than the cars of the 1970s in Formula One. I'd certainly say the drivers have got a bit of a safer time ahead of them, but that's not to say that it's going to be a hopefully safe time for them. This is a track that has challenged mind and machine for decades, on and off the screen. These drivers, plenty capable as they are, will find the greatest of challenges their way today. With 90 minutes of racing in conditions such as these, imagine if I were to see the faces of race control at the moment, knowing the conditions they have possibly fostered, they might be presenting a bit of a devilish grin at this time, knowing the kind of horror the drivers must face ahead of them. Mbog 530 in chat saying, wait, we have a whole formation lap. Yeah, I believe that was an oversight from race control. Have a go at them, not me, because I don't know how all of the settings work. Making our way then slowly but surely onto the Kesselchen. High-speed section of the track, but this is an area where the drivers may be forced to tiptoe around these high-speed corners with those ribbons now of standing water collecting on either side. They've not had plenty of time to battle the conditions at play. Taking a look further down through the order then to see some of the new drivers on the field. Of course, for Leon Forberg, he's put himself in a very respectable position there. Division 4th in the rookies. 8th overall on track for the start of today's race, up and ahead of Vermaak and Alexander to round out that top 10. Forberg's first race in the Sunday League, certainly a respectable one at that. Paul Vidler now finds himself backed up by his teammate Jared Vermeulen, who delivered a sensational qualifying performance, leaving our jaw dropped to the floor with his new fastest time. Ultimately, though, through the efforts of Galaxy and Van Velzen, he drops to 3rd, but still holds that rookies division pole away from Patrick Lecher, who is now 6th on this grid. In between him, in the number 9 Mustang, you can see between them the 54 Audi and the 599 Lexus of Carlos Stiesch and Zolt Beefgartner. You see here aggressively warming his tyres. Elias de Vos, who took victory in the Spa sprint race at the start of this season in the rookies, finds himself ranked in 2nd to last on this grid with a 22-car field. And through the recent move to the pit lane for Sergio Belda, though I don't believe one that was voluntarily made by the Spaniard, does find de Vos up an extra position for the start of this race. We'll start technically in 20th. On track, with Jaschuk behind him now 21st. Team for one of the new drivers on the field here, Nick Lamming of Race Club UK. We'll see what he can do after what has been a lackluster qualifying session for him. Finds himself 20th on the grid, but it's baby steps here, and it's certainly one definite way to try and get onto the grid proper. I mean, this is a baptism by fire for these drivers. It would be the case of teaching your child how to swim and then expecting them to swim the English Channel. It's just not a particularly realistic challenge. And for Lamming, his first ever appearance to the Sunday League grid, a grid that is already renowned for how airtight its performance has been and how close the racing has been this season. To make your debut on what is going to be, even for these drivers, the toughest of all challenges. This is going to be one we'll be watching with great curiosity to see how Lamming gets on. Oh, that's Yaschuk in the wall there. That's the Nissan in trouble on the formation lap. Pavel Yaschuk just off the exit, I believe there, of Hor 8 in trouble. We'll see, though, what the scope of the damage is looking like on that GTR. That could be a start from the pit lane for him, as he'll be diving straight in to repair it if it is deemed necessary to do so. Gabriel Lavuga, mixed bag in Silverstone, but now stands on the chances of a division podium right off the start, given that he can get the jump on Leon Forberg and Patrick Leger. We see for Forberg, a Ferrari very squirrely at the moment. It's a pity we can't actually get a graphic up as to who's on what set of tyres. This would play quite a heavy consideration into what that race start's going to look like, but we're entering this, relatively speaking, blind. GRE Freaky Fast 7 White, always I have only sound on your stream. I believe it's a bitrate error. It happens more often than not when you're using the mobile client, specifically the one on iOS. If it's anything else because of that, I sadly couldn't tell you, but that's one of the more common things we've seen there to be an issue. There's been plenty of issues with the mobile client. There's been also issues with the smart TV client for Twitch. I believe it is an issue synchronizing to the bit rate from our streams. We do run a relatively high bit rate so that we can have upwards of 2K quality on streaming. We have had to scale that back in recent months, but we are still, I'd say, above the average for the bit rate at this time. That does create a few issues with the client. That's at least from what I've been able to scrape up. That might not be hopefully accurate information, but that's the best we could get at the time. Because beyond that, I couldn't think of anything else. Looking on board here with Jared Vermeulen. In towards the run of things at the Flansgarten 2 section. Now we are not too far away from the end of what has been a very long and arduous formation lap. And I'm sure that race control is going to be getting quite a bit of a telling off then by the drivers at the end of today's session. But, you know, fortunately for them, they're at work, so they don't have to see any of this play out in real time. Now, in line as well with race control's proceedings from last weekend's round at Silverstone, we are to be advised then, when it comes to disconnects here, we are well beyond the point of no return. If the disconnect was to have happened before the end of free practice, we would have been authorized to reset the server or allow the server to reset manually, or automatically, I should say, and then get back into the lobby. But since we are now into the race, if it does, and I'm not saying it will, but if it does happen to suffer a disconnect that takes out more than a third of the grid. Now, that's not more than a third of a grid if they crash out of this race. That's different, broadly different. If it's a disconnect, and we can verify that it was disconnect the whole time, as we do actually, speaking of disconnects, get one there from Ian Skeen, then the session will be red flagged and we'll move it to next Sunday on what would currently be the 14th, which we, fortunately enough, had already booked off when it came to the booking for this season, so we can just get that one right up and running. But less on the talks of the logistics surrounding the Sunday League and more onto what we're about to see readily apparent on our screens. How is the race going to unfold for these drivers and what is going to be their greatest challenge in Sunday League history? The Mount Olympus of motorsports, then the Nürburgring Nordschleife, giveth and taketh away for these drivers, and even the most astute and experienced among them will be trembling in their boots for the start of today's race. 90 minutes of which the longest race so far this season. The first of which coming right here at the Green Hell itself in worse than conditions than the drivers would have wanted, worse than optimal, I should say, conditions that the drivers would have wanted for today's event. Rain is often the great equaliser, but that's often a sentiment passed on to the smaller tracks among the circulation on ACC. I'm not sure many people would like to bring that argument up for the Nürburgring Nordschleife. When you consider our last visit to the Sunday League took us to what was an already fairly large Grade 1, not the largest among them. Of course, we went to Spa at the start of the season, but our last visit took us to the Silverstone circuit, of course, 3.6 miles. And that was 3.6 miles. This is 15.7. We're dealing with a track nearly 5 times the size of our last one at Silverstone. As we begin the formation process, of course, warnings of wet conditions. There could be plenty of exiles to the pit lane for the start of racing today. Making our way then down towards the line, through to Tiergarten. Come hell or high water, these drivers will be facing it all today here at the Nürburgring. We watch with bated breath then on the edge of our seats for the start of this race, as it really could go any which way off that start. From the front row though, Fake Galaxy versus Cas van Velzen. Down towards the line then, 22 cars in attendance, 2 from the pit lane and 20 on track. Down towards the line then for Season 6, Round 4 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered for the first time by TRTN at our first ever visit to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, the green hell itself. 170 corners await us. We're green and racing here in the Nürburgring. The number 87 collects a drive-through for speeding on the start, but it's a great getaway from Cas van Velzen to go side by side now ahead of Fake Galaxy before we got to turn 1. In the background, you see Zolt Beefgarner looking to take challenge immediately on to Jared Vermeulen, who drops away from the podium. We see in the background there, big trouble as collected down through turn 1. It's disaster. Not entirely sure how it started, but we see how it ends there. And among the casualties, the 54 of Carlos Disch and the number 10 of Paul Vidler. Oh my goodness gracious me, I am at a complete state of shock there. Sadly, the replays couldn't give us enough of what we were looking for as to what happened for that incident. We see Jared Vermeulen also a casualty amongst that, and the 2 Apex Online Racing Pro cars are relegated from the top 10 on what has been a horrific start. Fake Galaxy now drops to second. It's Cas van Velzen to lead in the Nordschleife. Zolt Beefgartner in third, and Tyler Vermaak now 5th as Leon Forberg takes challenge to 4th. We see for Vermaak recent troubles as well, as he drops now out behind the number 37 of Gabriel Lavuga. As far as starts go here at the Nürburgring, it has been a shocking one indeed. The 547 of Cody Zarfel makes contact with the 14 of Jared Vermeulen. Another incident there for the 14. And this has been a horrible start to his time here in the Sunday League. Frayed tensions and almost immediately wiped out. Looking up through the order here to see Elias de Vos versus Leon Forberg for what now presents itself as the fight for the rookies lead here in the Nordschleife. Another yellow flag is out down at the Schumacher S's. You see up in front there, looks to be the fight brewing between Fake Galaxy and Zolt Beefgartner heading in towards the Nordschleife for the first time. On board here with Elias de Vos as we go back into green flag conditions. Behind them you see Gabriel Lavuga and Tyler Vermaak. Alan Alexander in 8th and Brooklyn Donkin in 9th. You see for Forberg running wide there in towards Hatzenbach for the first time here in round 4. As far as starts go, that's been a horrific one though for Vermeulen. He had such promise on the running towards today's race, and we have another yellow flag out. It's the number 9 car this time in trouble, that being Patrick Leger, now having fallen in behind his fellow Fatch GT talent, Levi Warner. Right now, right up behind him is Paul Vidler. We see significant damages there on the 44s. We do go back in to green flag conditions. Immediately, though, the yellow flags are back out. And we see it's for an incident actually up in front of these drivers. As I believe, yes, that was for the number 100 of Joris. Big trouble then across the grid. We see multiple casualties. Bear in mind, it's not the worst start we've ever seen in the Sunday League. That still goes to Bathurst last season, but boy, if it's not been quite the hellish scenes here in the green hell. We see a fight going on between what looks to be the case here of the Audi of Carlos Disch versus the Aston Martin of Ian Skeen. Up at the front of the field, though, Fake Galaxy currently swamped in behind, and having a look there, that's Cas van Velzen now leading, and Leon Forberg looks to do challenge with him for second, trying to catch on board here with Leon Forberg. Now gets side by side, now ahead down through Fuchsrot up towards the Adenauer Forst. So the number 696 now second overall in this race. Cas van Velzen leads into the Adenauer. Behind Leon Forberg now is Fake Galaxy. Running out wide goes Elias de Vos. Nearly collects himself upon the nose of the 599 Lexus of Zolt Beefgarner. Behind him, Gabriel Lavuga. And I believe behind Lavuga is Tyler Vermaak, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, that could be... Yes, it is Tyler Vermaak. Alan Alexander closing in from behind there. 9th as it stands at the moment on what has been horrific scenes here in the Nürburgring. With conditions like these, though, did it come as any a surprise, as this is what we'd be seeing in tonight's round. Another yellow flag out, number 10, this time Vidler. Down to the Adenauer Forst, we see getting up past him there goes Levi Warner. And for many drivers on the grid, it has been a very tough start. Cannot stress that point enough here. Looking on with Gabriel Lavuga. The Lamborghini looking to challenge Zolt Beefgartner on his return after a hiatus at the start of the season. Looking to fight for 6th place here. Lavuga still has to fend off against Tyler Vermack from behind. And behind him, Alan Alexander, as we make our way down through the run of the Siphon in towards Exmuller for the first time here in the Nordschleife. 1 hour and 25 minutes left to go. Leading then the defending drivers' champion. Into the wall though goes Gabriel Lavuga. Contact with the wall by the Lamborghini, falls in behind Tyler Vermack, but right onto the nose of Alan Alexander. Nearly collecting the Bentley as he goes there. We also see the continued fighting here between two teammates at Euro Titans. Carlos Deesh versus Ian Skeen. Going to catch on board with the Bentley though, the battle cruiser as we called it in Silverstone. As now Alexander sets his sights upon Gabriel Lavuga's Lamborghini. Up in front of him, Tyler Vermack, who he was previously pursuing, but the introduction of this sudden Lamborghini involvement, as we now see another yellow flag is out. We simply just cannot get enough of them, as it would appear. Back into the paddock goes the 370. That is Pavel Jaschuk with Nissan, and his day here in the Nordschleife looks to have swiftly come to an end. We also see here Vladimir Malarek versus, what looks to be there, the Ferrari number 14. So that is Jared Vermeulen. These two fighting at the moment for what stands as 12th place. And also worth noting there, it's just a few discrepancies with the data, but what we get now is the green flags come back out. Cas van Velten in the lead, Leon Forberg in second, Fake Galaxy in third, Elias de Vos in fourth, and Zolt Beefgartner round out the top 5 behind them. Tyler Vermack, Gabriel Lavuga, and Alan Alexander. Brooklyn Donkin in ninth, and Vladimir Malarek, as it stands to be the case, has dropped plenty from the top 10. In fact, that's why he was in the fight to begin with Vermeulen, now dropping down to 14th, as that happens to be the case. Rounding out the top 10, Carlos Deesh, behind him Ian Skeen, Leger in 12th, Vermeulen in 13th, Malarek in 14th, Joris in 15th, Vidler looking there at 17th, as between them at the moment is Levi Warner, currently in 16th, Cody Zarfel in 18th, Sergio Belda 19th, and Nick Lamming in 20th. Surprisingly enough, for what has been such a horrific start to today's race, only losing 2 drivers. Current closest fight going on is between De Vos and Galaxy, but it is worth giving honourable mentions there over towards the proceedings of a fight soon to be with these 3, Vermack, Lavuga, and Alexander. As that stands to be the case, this gamble to go to BMW has certainly presented itself a unique case. And hang on just a tick here, folks. I'm checking the weather radars, and of course you can very clearly see that the rain is gone, and I'm being told the next 30 minutes it's not coming back for at least that long. So the drivers do have an opportunity here for a possible wet to dry scenario. Now, bear in mind, it's been changeable conditions, so there is absolutely nothing to rule out the chances of this coming back towards the end of this race. Of course, with such a long race we have today here, there is the possibility of a 2-stop in what is an otherwise 1-stop race. Under mandatory pit stop regs, at least it's open strategy. The drivers will definitely be using that as an opportunity to pick up both fuel and tyres. De Vos, chasing down through the Kleiner Carousel, is hungry for a podium here, and he could be having one. Up and away from Fake Galaxy, but this is possibly the worst section he could have picked to try and contend with that BMW, because yes, the Ferrari is a quick motor, even in the slipstream. We'll see though as we make our way on towards the Dottinger. The 55 is an absolute rocket ship. How close can the Ferrari stay with? He needs to cling on for dear life to that slipstream, because the moment he emerges from it, he's going to be a deer in the headlights. Holding on, he's geared up for much higher than what the car can give him. And in that slipstream, now emerging into the side draft. Has he signed his own death warrant here? Is he close enough to the Ferrari up in front of him, being Leon Forberg, to take on a little extra toe of slipstream? I think the Ferrari's just got it there, so a surprising turn. One that I don't imagine he was ever expecting to make, but better to try and fail than to not try at all. Down towards Tiergarten. We see then for Elias de Vos now 3rd in this race. Leon Forberg makes 2nd. Cas van Velten leading for Porsche. Fake Galaxy on his move to BMW has been a bit of a muddled one at the moment, as he now finds himself presented with new targets from behind as Zolt Beefgartner approaches from 5th. Further down the line then, Tyler Vermack in 7th. Actually, no, having dropped plenty down there to 8th as he crosses the line. Gabriel Lavuga now 6th. Alan Alexander now 7th. Vermack 8th. Donkin in 9th, Deesh in 10th, Skeen in 11th. You can see there damage on the Aston Martin. That could definitely be an incentive to bring him into the pit lane. As we see him down through Tiergarten. And he'll not be alone in that paddock. There's plenty of drivers expected to run back into the pits here after the first 10 minutes of racing. Down to the line then goes Skeen. Malarex elects to stay out. Joris now, I believe they're losing ground off to Cody Zarfel. Levi Warner down towards Tiergarten, likely a case as well. Same for Paul Vidler, that these two could run into the pit lane. We'll see for Vidler. It looks like he's staying out. We saw even more trouble just off screen for the 44. So if there wasn't already the idea he'd be coming into the pits, I'm sure this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back here on his return to the Sunday League for the 44. Down to the line then goes Levi Warner back into the paddock alongside Ian Skeen. Cody Zarfel stays out. No word yet on Lamming. We see though for Joris into the pit lane for McLaren. Taking a look further up the field then, Beefgartner versus Galaxy towards the front of the field. DeVos versus Forberg for the lead of the rookies and for second overall on today's grid. Two battles for the price of one. A real treat to behold then, as we see from the 599's point of view. Heading up towards Vidal. Beefgartner still in pursuit here over Fate Galaxy up in front though. Plenty to be discussed in the war of the Ferraris for the rookies win here in the Nordschleife between Leon Forberg and Elias DeVos. We've got to catch on board with them in just a moment's time. We do see them off the exit of what would be the Coca-Cola curve. Two noteworthy things here. He had the possibility of a run up towards the 55, but also worth noting is the case Gabriel Lavuga is gaining quite a bit of steam here in the last couple of corners as he runs in towards what is officially lap one for these drivers. Going to catch on board with the two Ferraris then. Elias DeVos versus Leon Forberg. We see very nearly pitching in towards the wall there. On board with the 99 of Elias DeVos, fighting for what is technically a division lead, overall fighting for second. Heading up through to Flugplatz, you can still see little sprinklings of water there on the edges of the track, being kicked up by the two Ferraris. Making our way up through now towards Cottonborn and Schwedenkreuz, picking up steam here as he gets closer and closer to Forberg. This could end in tears between the two. He's looking for the inside. Schwedenkreuz backs out of it. The number 696 still holds the ground up towards Arenberg. And it's such a hypnotic sector to watch just how much speed they carry through that whole area on such a thinly laid road. Here on the Nordschleife, down through Fuchsrohr, up towards the Agnar Foss we go. In the war on two Ferraris. Meanwhile, in behind them, the BMW and the Lexus of Galaxy and Beefgartner still contesting an overall fourth. Going to the wall there. That's Leon Forberg into the wall. As Elias DeVos takes up the helm of that rookie's lead. It's disaster for Leon Forberg. Looking here, carried a little too much momentum. Tried to get onto the brakes. The car went wide and the back end came loose and he ping-pongs off the walls. Forberg catapulted to the barriers there. That tiny little step out on the Ferrari was enough to break such a thinly held confidence on those 296s. It is really like running the edge of a blade here for these Ferrari drivers. Horror. Also word there from the 696. So yes, he's back into the paddock, I believe. Leon Forberg's time in the sun has swiftly ended for him. And a pity so there. It has been a brutal day. One that he had the lead of that Division 4, but it was one tiny, tiny little error that has kept him from a possible rookies win today. We hope that that's not the end of the time we'll be seeing from him. As of course, 2 weeks from now, we'll be heading to Donington Park for round 5 of the championship. I'd say plenty a better place to pick up for those looking to get up into this championship. This has been a brutal round, no less. And Elias DeVos looks to collect. If he can hold his ground of position right now, he could very well be on the chances for his first Rookies Division win since Spa sprint race at the start of the season. Looking around then to see where other fights are coming from. Ian Skeen picks up on a fight now with Nick Lamming. Or what is looking here, 15th on track. Vermack now having lost distance off to Alan Alexander may find Brooklyn Donkin as company. We also see, speaking of Alexander, we mentioned him before, he's in a fight here with Gabriel Lavuga for 5th on track. Lavuga now 2nd in the rookies. Look at a catch on board then with the fight between Zolt Beefgartner and Fake Galaxy as they make their way through Looking here at Mudkurva. We're heading up towards Mudkurva now, just out through Kesselchen, now to Mudkurva. You see how much more momentum that BMW can carry over the Lexus. So much sharper around the edges when it comes to cornering. Down towards Stahlstrecke. First 15 minutes of racing then covered here in the Nürburgring on what has been a very, very troublesome start to round 4. And we see already the casualties of which taking toll as we dropped from 22 cars to 17 left on this grid. Cas van Velzen leads over Elias de Vos with Fake Galaxy in 3rd. Watching on at the moment with the car from 4th. Zolt Beefgartner fighting for that podium. Currently 4th with the 599 Lexus. Behind them, Gabriel Lavuga in 5th. Alan Alexander in 6th. Tyler Vermack, as it stands to be the case, then in 7th. Brooklyn Donkin in 8th. Carlos Disch in 9th. Patrick Leger in 10th. Jared Vermeulen now in 11th. Worth pointing out then, having survived a lot of the chaos after his turn 1 and 2 incident, now actually finds himself a Division 4th in the rookie. So there is a silver lining if he can keep this kind of performance up over the next hour and 14 minutes. Vladimir Malarex in 12th with Paul Vidler chasing from behind in 13th. Cody Zarfel in 14th. Ian Skeen in 15th. Nick Lamming in 16th. And Joris in 17th. Down through Brunchen, we see the 55 now having put a bit of distance between himself and Zolt Beefgartner. Now setting his sights on the car in 2nd, Elias de Vos, who now stands alone for Ferrari after the horrific accident there that took out Leon Forberg. Follow here with the 99, scrapes dangerously close to the outer edge of the track there. That could be killer for him. Getting even a slight bit of grass or gravel on those wheels when they're load bearing like that can easily spin the car. We've seen some brutal wipeouts in the past. At that section. I was just taken aback there to see that the Bentley out through, looking at it, Flansgarten's Fire actually got airborne for but a moment there. The 315 is catapulting its way up towards the Schwalbenschwanz. Can really start to get a scope of the determination here of the Bentley chasing down Gabriel Lavuga. In behind, Brooklyn Donkin still chasing down Tyler Vermack, but it's worth noting that gap is shrinking by the corner here between these two. Vermack, who normally holds quite a lot of ground here in the corners, is losing time to the BMW, and it's only going to get worse for him here onto the Dottinger. Going to catch on board then with the number 17, firmly in the rear view of Tyler Vermack. On board here with Brooklyn Donkin, fighting for 7th on the Dottinger Hohe. He's got the slipstream, and as we mentioned before, the McLaren is no slouch. Side by side, level pegging here between these two. 547 brings out the yellow flags down at, looking here, Eschbach and Brunchen. Even more troubles then down the line. We do see, though, for Donkin, still side by side with Vermack. Vermack's on the grass, into the wall, off of all 4 wheels. Oh, my words. What has happened there for Tyler Vermack? He's come up over the curbs and the car has gone airborne. Looking here, out through Antonio Spucher, down towards Tiergarten. Watch this here. Goes onto the grass. There is a lip to it there. Rear end lifts with the front. The whole car was off of all 4 wheels before slamming back down into the barriers. Tyler Vermack has been wiped out. That is extinction for that McLaren. Meanwhile, we see multiple drivers entering the pit lane. Of course, the stricken McLaren there. You can see just the scope of damage. How has he gotten that one to the pit lane? That is unheard of. The amount of damage he's got there. You can see the front's dragging, the rear's dragging, the aero front and back is broken. Both bumpers compromised. The whole bodywork along the side of the car splintered and cracked. How there's even a McLaren left to recover is a mystery to me. In the pit lane with him then, Jared Vermeulen and Carlos Disch, the 547 of Cody Zarfel, who was one who brought out the yellow flags earlier at Eschbach and Brunchen. We see now the scope of the damage as he makes his way through Schwalbenschwanz. And it's definitely, I'd say, a great deal less than for Max, but that's not to say that there isn't damage for him. I believe that could be damage to his steering system because the car is hovering around the track a little bit for him there. A little bit of vague steering, so likely damage to the suspension as well. You can see from the scope of the damage already, there is damage to the aero on that Ferrari, with that rear wing slanting ever so slightly to the right, I believe that was. What a sudden turn there. Multiple wipeouts. We saw it from Forberg. Now we see it from Vermack. And it is a dark, dark day here for Tyler Vermaak when one considers he was up at the front of the championship heading in towards today's event. And that is going to be a very brutal footnote in his performance so far because while we do have extra points up for grabs in these 90-minute races, I believe it's 1.5 times the points of a standard race. So there is plenty more points to be grabbed here. He is going to be ultimately losing a lot more ground than gaining. On board then with Fade Galaxy. Still been on board during this time now through Flugplatz. Currently holds then the grounds of 4th place. It's worth pointing out though, Gabriel Lavuga is still close by in his pursuits. Currently division 2nd, 5th overall. Meanwhile, we see from Brooklyn Donkin hemorrhaging ground from teammate Alan Alexander for 6th place in today's race. Still in the pit lane then is Carlos Deesh at this time. We have seen recently, though, for Jared Vermeulen, he is back out on track. And as it would appear, brand new tyres also for the number 14. A little bit of patchwork there after a troubled first lap for him. Currently, those still holds as it would appear. Just getting a glance, I believe he has only dropped, I believe, 2 positions in the rookies. Now, the only problem we have here with the Nürburgring, very slow to update when it comes to the listings on the left-hand side of your screen. So often it is the case we have to go over towards this one here to see exactly what it is that's going on. We do get to see, though, that the fight for 2nd place is brewing between DeVos and Beefgartner. Beefgartner has been on a very solid charge here with Lexus. Now, of course, the drivers are going to be gritting their teeth for the next couple of laps at hand because many of them still running those wet tyres from the start of today's race. And with the rain subsiding for at least the next 30 minutes, we are looking at a run in towards the slick tyres. So for a lot of these cars, we are seeing those wet tyres are being excessively heated up now. They're going to be overheating by the end of most of these laps, if not by the midway mark here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. One considers, you know, half of the track is still 85 corners. We're still dealing with what is in most regards upwards of 7 or 8 times the amount of corners some other tracks have. Recent trouble for the 991. We do have yellow flags out for the Aston Martin. It's Ian Skeen in disarray. We go to locate him here. We have seen, though, he's got back up and running. So I believe was just a bit of a spat there down at Dunlop. Nothing too severe and nothing race ending, of course, for the Aston Martin, still soldiering on up through the Schumacher S's at this time. Going to catch back on board with the proceedings, I should say, of this newfound fight for 2nd with Zolt Beefgartner of TSRC Esports. You see here that Lexus is a proper juggernaut on the straights. The Ferrari stranded like a deer in the headlights here. But of course there's no space for him to try and find ground. We are dealing with a tremendously large Lexus. And I won't say that the Ferrari is much a smaller car either. They are 2 tremendously large GTs trying to squeeze into the eye of a needle here through Mudkurve. In towards Klostertal, now Stylestrecker up in front of them. You could get the faint glimmer of green there from the leading Porsche of Cas van Velzen. Bear in mind, it's worth pointing this out for Van Velzen. He's yet to have seen a victory this season. It's been a case where we've seen wins from Carlos Deesh, Alan Alexander and Tyler Vermaak, but we've yet to see a single race win from last season's Drivers' Champion. So Van Velzen could have it in the bag here. He's already been on a record of first. Now looking at his accolades from the past, Van Velzen was allegedly the first driver to win with Porsche. We know that he's the first driver to win with Mercedes as well. Could he be the first driver ever to win at the Nürburgring Nordschleife? That is certainly quite the accolade indeed. You compare it as well to last weekend when we were at the Silverstone circuit. The first ever driver to have won there, I believe, was Louis Baptiste in Season 1, Round 2. So this is treading upon the ground of a brand new series of firsts here in the Nürburgring. I would say today it's been less so a case of who can win at the Nürburgring. It's more who can survive at the Nürburgring. It is an utterly inhospitable environment for these drivers. It is hell upon earth As we now see Vesolt Beefgartner having bled away some gap between himself and Elias de Vos, now finds himself pressured from behind to defend third away from Fake Galaxy. From behind them is Gabriel Lavuga in towards Flansgarten 1, in towards Sprunghugel and up towards Flansgarten 2. Number 54 in the pits at the moment. Carlos Disch still in with Audi Sport. Also in is the 991 Aston Martin of Ian Skeen. We see exiting Galgenkopf now onto the Dottinger. This could be an opportunity to reel things back in for Zolt Beefgartner. Of course, we know the Lexus's tremendous straight line speed, among the fastest cars in GT3 at the moment. Bear in mind, preaching to the converted here, because behind him is the BMW, another straight line speed bullet. Here on the Dottinger. You see there in the case of the Lexus, getting closer and closer, so away from that fight for third, now to the fight for second, as he cruises on by Elias de Vos, up through Antonio Spucher. Now up and ahead of the Ferrari, we saw this to be the site of Vermack's horrific accident down at Tiergarten. So far, so good, but it's very late onto the brakes for both drivers. An easy section for the car to become upset and unstable. Off the exit of Tiergarten, making his way, as it stands to be the case, onto another flying lap here. So no suggestion yet from either of these two for a run into the pit lane. I believe neither is the case for Fake Galaxy behind them. Making their way down through to the Yokohama S's. Up in front of them then by 2.5 seconds is Cas van Velzen. Exiting that turn 1 and 2 section. A Galaxy in fourth. Gabriel Lavuga holds the fastest lap so far for Lamborghini. Currently fifth overall. Division second for ISR Motorsports, number 37 Lambo. Alan Alexander then sixth. Donkin seventh. Leger's into the pit lane. Currently division third in the rookies. Malarex still out on track at the moment. Vermeulen down through the Schwalbenschwanz in 10th overall. Zafel in 11th. Lamming in 12th. Vidler in 13th. Vermack in 14th. Joris in 15th. It's Skeen and Disch residing to the pit lane here. Currently no indication as to if they will come back. Zolt Beefgartner then, he's recently taken the spotlight for action after his overtake ahead of Elias de Vos. Steps closer to trying to take the lead off of Cas van Velzen. A little bit of upset up in front there. That gap did teeter a little bit below 3 seconds, but it was also the case where following through Vidal was the same story for both of these two, Beefgartner and de Vos. With Galaxy not too far behind, in towards Hatzenbach we go. Lexus leading from Ferrari, from BMW. Up in front of them, though, is Porsche. In terms of nearby fights, we are seeing the proceedings now away from Beefgartner's defense from de Vos, more the attack here on Galaxy versus de Vos. We heard then from the Aston Martin of Ian Skeen touch the grass on the exit of Schwedenkreuz. And that's him out of the race. A very unfortunate end then for the Aston Martin. Depending on what action's looking like on track, we might try to get a few interviews out of drivers today. I know that Skeen has been one among the drivers more confident to come onto the stream and have a chat with us. So we'll come to see if that is a thing we can have a little later on today. Right now, though, we're still barely into the first half hour of racing here at the Nürburgring. Meanwhile, let's got to catch on board here with Fake Galaxy through Schwedenkreuz. This was the area that took Skeen out of this race in towards Arenberg. Then Poststrasse up towards the Fuchsrohr section, or I suppose more relevantly down through Fuchsrohr and up towards the Adenauer Forst as we go down through this dip, almost a valley-like structure in the track here. Now back on the rise uphill. In through to the ad now. Of course, Leon Forberg saw the end of his race right here in this section. We do have word of a yellow flag down at Brunchen. That's for the number 8, I believe, of Patrick Leger. Let's go to quickly check in on him. No, it's not the number 9. It's number 8. Sorry, it's Tyler Vermack. We see down through to Flansgarten Eins. There is damage on that McLaren. My word, did you see the airtime? Over the nose. Vermack has had a very, very rough day. No doubts there. Through to Flansgarten Zwei. You can see that front end really not doing a great deal to keep him connected to the ground. Up towards the Schwalben. Schwanz will catch on with him a little later on. Back on in with the fight. Currently as it stands for the last of the podium positions. Fake Galaxy versus Elias de Vos. Seeing if we can catch on board then with the man defending pole position, Elias de Vos. Leading the rookies here in the Nordschleife. The world's weight upon his shoulders already. Has had to try and defend away from Zolt Beefgarner. You can see that the Ferrari getting a little bit squirrely off the exit of the Asphalt Pidescheid. Now Fake Galaxy backs up onto his rear view. This is now the 3rd manufacturer we've seen Fake Galaxy with after his debut last season to Ford, then moved to Audi alongside teammate Carlos Disch, and now has decided to split away from convention, moving to BMW after round 3 at Silverstone. Meanwhile, it's the case for the number 54 of Carlos Disch that he'll stay with Audi, at least for the time being. There could still be a comment made upon that after today being a very troubled day for the Audi team. Up in front then, Beefgarner now 2.5 seconds away. As you can see, all manner of pressure building in this fight for 3rd. Out through the Mudkurve. Through to Klostertal. Now Stahlstrecker between these two. 0.2 of a second here, so glued to each other down through Stahlstrecker. Now to Carousel. On board with the Ferrari, still pursuing from behind them the number 55 BMW. As we go down through the Carousel. Behind there, it's worth pointing out, I mean, he's been a present factor in the background for some time after a little bit of upset there off the exit of Carousel. Lavuga is still with, but pointing out the number 100 still has 2 more laps to serve that stop-go 30. Up through to Hohe Acht. Then in towards, looking here to run at Hedvigshøj. Then to Wippermann. This could be an area where the Ferrari could carve more of a line away. Of course, the mid-engine cars have a lot more rotation in the corners over the front-engine cars, but it's worth noting with the way that BMW has been built and the way it's been set up, it's got a tremendous amount of nose in for a front-engine car. It's often the Achilles heel then to mid-engine-led dominance, but right now, both of those platforms falter to keep up with the rear-engined Porsche at the head of the field. Of course, we spoke about BMW's legacy at the N24 earlier in this stream when we were talking about the M4. But BMW as a brand, of course, holds the most amount of wins at the Nürburgring 24 hours. But I would like to suggest as well, with only 8 less wins than them, still standing with 13 wins in the history of the Nürburgring 24 hours, has been Porsche. So you are dealing with some serious heavy hitters among that top 5 at the moment. As for Ferrari, they've only had 1, and it was, as a matter of fact, with the car you see here, the 2023 Ferrari 296, won the 2023 Nürburgring 24 hours. It really does go to show this latest generation of Ferrari GT car and its subsequent ties to the 499p has been a breath of fresh air for a brand that has struggled to stay above the waterline in motorsports for many, many years. A brand with some of the most gravity in the automotive world now has a car that reflects its lasting legacy. And while it may not be the purest choice, the V6 of the Ferrari 296 was a necessary evil to bring Ferrari back to winning form in the world of endurance racing. That same V6, of course, in the 499p took 3 consecutive Le Mans wins, and we're only a week away from the 2026 24 Hours of Le Mans. Now side by side, though, for the fight of third. Elias de Vos tries to fend off on the inside of Antonio Spucker. Away from the BMW, they rub doors. Fake Galaxy's on the grass. What can he make of it here? As now looking over the rear view. Somehow the BMW has recovered that one. Oh my goodness, someone in the pit lanes on top of a change of tyres. Get a change of trousers there for that 55. That was too tense to call. The 99 stays out. Elias de Vos stays on for another lap, getting a look though with the 55, who now looks to go side by side with the approaching 37. Gabriel Lavuga looking to fight for fourth place. He'll be to the outside at the start, then the inside on the second part of the Yokohama S's, and is going for the long run, so he's going to hold that inside in towards turn 2. The number 37 nearly rubs doors there with the 55. A very sudden upset then for the 55 of Fake Galaxy, who was knocked out sideways, but knocked to the side by the 99. But Gabriel Lavuga, though, he won't argue, as it happens to be the case, with an extra position, now moving up to fourth, and the number 37 ISR Motorsports Lamborghini. Meanwhile, Zot Beefgartner now holds the cards of the fastest lap of the race, and it is worth pointing out he is getting closer to Cas van Velzen. And seeing how long the drivers have been willing to go on what we originally speculated were wet tyres, could it be the case that a lot of drivers elected to stay on the dry tyres and just brave their way through the first couple of laps? Because I imagine that would definitely give us a bit more of an understanding as to why that race start was so rough. Especially down through the Yokohama S's, where we had a clear difference in tyres. Why two worlds effectively collided on the run down through turns 1 and 2. Certainly a suggestion to be made there, because I don't imagine, even in his madness, that Cas van Velzen would elect to stay this long out on wet tyres on what is a track literally baking now in the German sunlight. Meanwhile, new yellow flag out here. I believe it is the 547. Yes, Cody Zarfel of Hurry Racing down at the Adenauer Forst. Meanwhile, looking here for Lavuga v Galaxy as their fight continues up in front of them. Elias de Vos now being faced with a double threat here from these two. Down through Hatzenbach we go. Out through Horneichen in just a moment's time then. You see that for that Ferrari, I think there is definitely a case here that he has been on the wet tyres. There's a little too squirrely now for there to not be anything going right, really, with the tyre heat. Heading up through Flugplatz, still holding strong, though. It's been a very admirable performance today from the number 99 to brave conditions, thick and thin here with Ferrari. A race that has, I would say, definitely not been kind to the Ferraris today, with Vermeulen's troubles and Vidler's troubles. And we also saw for Forberg that huge slam at the Adenauer Forst section. Elias de Vos stands alone as the sole survivor of Ferrari right now, so far unharmed. Speaking of Vermeulen, it is worth considering here for the South African talent what was a baptism by fire that knocked him well away from the lead of the rookies has now brought him back to a podium in division at the moment. He's up and ahead of Leger. As it stands to be the case, if he can hold his ground for the next 52 minutes, there's nothing to say that he can't collect on a possible win today. He is still, I would say, having a glance here, given how long it takes for a pit lane run, I would say there is a suggestion to point out that he is possibly within range. It's a bit of a far cry. I'm not going to say that it isn't, but I wouldn't rule it out. Is certainly my standing on the matter. Especially when you consider just before that pit lane is the fastest section on the track. They will be able to close down what appears to be a very large amount of distance very quickly, because their foot's going to be in the bottom of that floor of the car, whilst everyone else is going to have theirs firmly lifted from the pit lane. New three-way fight emerging then. Lamborghini, BMW and Ferrari. The third at the moment. Elias de Vos defends away from Gabriel Lavuga, who hunts down a division lead in the rookies then after his debut to Silverstone last weekend. We go to catch on board with the number 99 leading this charge away from the 37 and the 55 for Elias de Vos, defending away third by local technicality. He is defending away the lead for the rookies, namely from the 37 of Gabriel Lavuga. You see here from Elias de Vos. Currently then fighting for third place. And for those perhaps who missed out what we've got coming up later on into the next week, on Tuesday we've got the first round of the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series Season 6. And on Wednesday morning, 1 AM BST. Otherwise, it'll be 9 PM Eastern Standard Time if you're tuning in from the United States on the Tuesday before. We have round 2 of Season 4, the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series on Friday. We have the Orange Line Racing X VSR Porsche Super Cup, and their first ever round goes live this Friday at around 8 o'clock. And on Saturday, we have the finale of Season 4 of the HCCL Multi-Class Championship. Do thoroughly look forward to all of that. All of that live exclusively here on TRTN. A little later on then, we'll be getting a chat in with a driver sadly out of today's race, but still one of the confidants of the Euro Titans endurance team. And we'll get on board with Ian Skeen not too long. Well, not on board, we'll get on into a chat with Ian Skeen not too long from now. Right now, watching the fight though between Elias de Vos, Gabriel Lavuga and Fake Galaxy. You see then more troubles ensuing here. This is at Schwalbenschwanz, and I think this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Cody Zarfel. A very, very brutal round for him, and I believe that is the end of the road for him as he's back into the pit lane, recovered there by Cruz. A sad end, one that has claimed many a driver in today's event. Recently then, Gabriel Lavuga now drops behind Fake Galaxy through Brunchen, heading towards Eiskurve. Up in front, more dust kicked out there by the Ferrari of Elias de Vos. You see bright sunny conditions, a far cry of what we saw on the formation lap, with wet weather continuing to pound the track. What we really thought we were geared up for was going to be the makings of a wet race today, but pleasantly surprised to see changeable conditions still at play. Normally when we say changeable conditions, it usually is changing from one condition to another and staying then. We were really expecting then it to be a wet race. This is much a better surprise though, I imagine, for the drivers also. This is certainly a breath of fresh air for them. On board at the moment with Fake Galaxy. Now pursuing a podium here in the Nürburgring down through the Kleiner Carousel. And that Ferrari is getting all manner of out of shape now on Elias de Vos. Those tyres wearing thin through to Galgenkopf. Oh, they're out wide at Galgenkopf, nearly in the wall. That Ferrari has done tremendously well to keep himself from trouble. Right behind him, though, is the Lamborghini of Gabriel Lavuga. So side by side, we've got to catch on board here with Elias de Vos versus Lavuga. And now the Ferrari tucked in behind the Lamborghini. He's back into the slipstream. This is in the fight for the rookie's lead, I should point out. Side by side now. Two fated rivals in the automotive world, Ferrari and Lamborghini, now do battle here at the Nordschleife up towards Antonius Bucher, retaking the rookie's lead. Goes Elias de Vos over Gabriel Lavuga. Down through Antonius Bucher now in towards Tiergarten. We've seen plenty of upset in this area of the track, but for these two, what are we going to find on a run out through lap 4 into lap 5 here? The back end still swinging loose on Elias de Vos. Zolt Beefgarter is into the pit lane. Gabriel Lavuga joins him. I believe seeing there the 55 and the 99 stay out. And I believe so too was the story for Cas van Beltzen. Yes, also elects to stay out as we get closer to the halfway mark. I believe for these three, they're going to run it one more lap over and then come into the pit lane. The 99 has a score to settle though with the 55. Fake Galaxy now inherits second as Euro Titans reclaim the two leading positions of the race. Hispania Racing Nexus hold that third place spot, and leading the rookies at this time, Elias de Vos looking for his first victory since the sprint race at Spa in round 1 of the championship. Been a long road to travel on for him at this time. We see Beefgartner and Lavuga in the pit lane. Also in now is Brooklyn Donkin. Staying out is Alan Alexander, who I imagine will be a little bit upset, I imagine, at the lack of wet racing. Now, there was really the prospect there for the Bentley. That's still not taking away from what's been an exceptional performance for him today. sadly, we have got confirmation. The 547 of Cody Zarfel is now out of round 4. It has been a brutal, brutal round. We are down now to 14 cars left in contention on what started as a grid of 22 on the run towards tonight's event. It's thinned out the herd here, this track. It is a brutal, brutal one indeed. Seeing here with Cas van Velzen, who is electing to stay out for another lap here as we head up to the halfway mark of the race. Now, not long from now, we'll be catching a chat in with the 991 of Ian Skeen. Sadly, out of today's race, but we'll get some insight from the driver's eye view of things. And perhaps get a chat about the prospect of Euro Titans, of course, still storming into the lead on the team's championship. We spoke with Ben Meredith, the manager of the ACC division over at Euro Titans at the end of last season, to speak about their progress in the team's championship. We'll go and chat in with one of their longest standing drivers. You see, for Elias de Vos, that back end is really starting to snake out on him here. It is quite a worrying thing to see from the Ferrari.
Keep pushing.
Eve Gardner currently then 4th as it would stand. Actually, I believe that's 5th, yes, with Alan Alexander. We see for Gabriel Lavuga, still in Division 2nd. Donkin, as it stands then, in 7th overall. Jared Vermeulen. I hope in the case such as we saw for Leon Forberg as well, that this is not the last time we'll see that number 14, because what a start it was for him in that qualifying session. Rocked the world with that time. Was only able to be outdone by 2 of the strongest talents on this grid, Fake Galaxy and Cas van Velzen. Was looking confident for that lead of the rookies, and it was just swept away from him there. I mean, the Nordschleife is a brutal track. I believe that happened even before we even got to the Nordschleife. That was down in the Yokohama S's at turns 1 and 2. A brutal start to that race, no less. Huge pile up from the midfield, spilling over into turn 1. Seen then, as it stands to be the case, nearest fight starting to emerge. Paul Vidler versus Nick Lamming, but that's quickly come to an end as Lamming is in to the pit lane in the number 87 Mustang. So right now we do find ourselves in a bit of a dark zone for battles on track. 1.5 seconds and dropping swiftly away there between the BMW and the Ferrari of Fake Galaxy and Elias de Vos as they make their way out through, by looks of things here, of Veersiphon in towards Exmuller and the Alsfart Breitscheid. And we'll look to see if we can get a word then out of Ian Skeen. In just a moment's time. You see their dust up in front. That was from Fake Galaxy. Let's see if we can get a word then out of Ian Skeen today. Right, Ian.
Not bad, mate, you?
Yeah, troubled race today, I imagine. Oh, just a moment there. We just saw on board with Elias de Vos clattered with the wall, but he's, I think he's doing all right there. Troublesome race, then, I imagine. Not the way you wanted things to end today, but other than that, how are you feeling so far then this season, I guess, is the best way to start things off here?
The season's not gone too bad. We're only 4 races in. I think I've got 2 podiums so far. That's not too bad. Or 2 or 3, I'm not sure. Yeah, this race kind of fell apart from the start. Went on the formation lap, I got a game crash, so I'd start from the pit lane. I thought, you know, why not start on wets, see where it goes. Started on wets and was following Carlos through into Metzgersfeld and hit the curb, went straight into the wall, so I had to pit. Oh no, that wasn't that one, that was a second crash. Just after brunch, and I think I hit the wall on that one. pit with about 1:50 damage. Came back out on dries, did a lap and a half, and then crashed between Rebel Tree and Metzgersfeld, and then yeah, just thought to park it. So I'm just engineering for the boys at the moment, figuring out strategies and seeing if we can get Cass the win, because that Lexus is crazy fast on the straights.
Yeah, something I am curious to sort of pick your brain about. You don't have to tell us right now, but how many of the drivers right now have actually gone onto those wets?
It was just me.
Just
just me, yeah.
Yeah, I
thought
a theory
because
as well that some of the drivers had started on the dry tyres because there was definitely that disparity in performance between the front and the back. That's where I think that major incident started from, down at Yokohama. I think it was a case where quite a few of the drivers towards the back emergency swapped onto those wets, did it just in time. They had a great start from the back, but the front had such a slow start because they were still all on the dries.
Nobody from our team did. I'm not sure about anybody else, but from what I saw going through the field, I definitely saw the yellow on the side of the tyres. So I believe everybody was on dries. Carlos was definitely on dries, but he was really, really fast. So I thought, I'll try and keep with him and then see where it goes, and then ended up just hitting the wall and limping back. But it happens, so we move on to Donington there in 2 weeks, and hopefully I can go well at that track because I've gone well there in the past, so
yeah,
we'll see.
I do seem to distinctively recall, historically speaking, plenty of solid performances from yourself. And this stretches all the way back to, I believe it was your time with AERT when they were doing endurance races. I think it was you and Williams that did remarkably well at Donington way back. I mean, this was probably years ago now, to GHR.
About 2 or 3 years, yeah.
Yeah,
geez,
that it's been that long.
Very long time ago. Me and Aaron, yeah, we were in the 696 Mercedes at that point, fighting with Luke Wilson and Wesley Kuiper in McLaren, I think they were in.
Yeah, the former K1 Esports team that gone through a renaming process now.
Yeah, and we had a bump with them in that race, and that sent us off just after the old hairpin. And
yes, I do seem to remember that one actually. Yes, because there's obviously the huge washouts of grass at Donington. You clip anywhere between Hollywood and the old hairpin, and you are going to be seeing miles of grass all the way down towards at least Starkey's in towards McLean's. Yeah, it's a rough one. Well, Donington's going to be an interesting one for you, though, I imagine. I have pretty high hopes for solid performance from you and the rest of the Euro Titans team. We're just seeing on our screen at the moment, as it stands to be the case, the two leading Euro Titans cars have just come in, but staying out is Elias De Vos. He's playing for quite a curious gamble then in that 99 Ferrari, but what is it kind of like at the team then? What's the morale looking like for the possibility of a win? I'd say it's definitely likely for Cass, but are we looking at a possibility of a 1-2 or a 1-2-3 on the strategies right now?
If Galaxy can get past Lavuga and past Elias, then maybe. He seems to be stuck behind them a little bit, so I think he's just come in because Lavuga came in last lap. Galaxy's come in this lap. If the pace and clean air has helped him move forward, then there's a possibility of a possibly 1-3, but I don't think we've got anything on the Lexus that Zolt's in.
There's actually just been...
Now, so.
Yeah, I've just seen that come through. That's big trouble for Fate Galaxy. Stop go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So it looks like a lot of the responsibility of that podium now falls on the shoulders of Cass. I'd say that I'm going to keep a close eye out for some of the others among the group right now, and keep an eye for Brooklyn, and also keep an eye for Alan among that mix as well. With Alan still yet to come to the pit lane, I'd still say there is definitely, if not the chances for a podium for him today, definitely the chances of a top 5.
Definitely a top 5, I think. I think with the win, it's going to be touch and go. I mean, we've got another possibly 6, maybe 7 laps left of the race, depending on the pace of the guys at the top. If Zolt can keep with Cass through the twisty section of the track and keeps up with him through the Doddinger, then Cass is lost down about 7 kph, 7 or 8 kph on the straight. He's getting 275, and the Lexus is putting near 282. That's going up the hill, and near 290 going down, so we can't match that speed, but hopefully we can try and defend and pull something out of the bag if he can keep with him.
I mean, we've seen some fantastic performances from Cass in the past. We've also seen some brilliant offenses by Zolt Beefgunner. If these two do end up at the head of the field, as it would stand, for that fight of the lead, we're going to see some real clash of the Titans stuff between these two.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's a good race so far for the guys, though. Obviously, not including myself, but yeah, Alan, I think, is having some troubles with stability and straight line speed. Brooklyn is having a few troubles with stability, and I don't know about Galaxy because he's not currently in our team voice chat. He's with Carlos at the moment. They're doing their own strategy, and yeah, we'll see if it goes well. And I don't hope on people making mistakes. Like Zolt's just tapped the wall now, but hopefully Cass can hold on to it. I'm confident that he can and his ability that he can, but I think the main limiting factor at the moment is just the speed.
Well, we're nearly, as it stands to be the case, nearly 2/3 of the way through today's race. We've got about 35 minutes left to go, so well, it's been great chatting with you, and I wish you all the best of luck, and best of luck to the Euro Titans team as well. It's going to be a very interesting last half hour of the race, because so far on our first ever visit to the Nordschleife, it's been a brutal outing. And there's questions over whether or not that'll ever return again. But of course, the wheel will decide that one at the end of the season. So if it were to return next season, would you be sort of dreading it, or would you be hoping for it? Is that's the real question to leave on.
I'd go into it as I go into every race, put the practice in, put the hours in, and if it doesn't go well on the day, then it doesn't go well on the day, and just leave it in the realms of the racing gods, I say. But sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't. I just have to take the punches as they come and deal with it when I get there.
Well, Ian, it's been fantastic chatting with you, and unfortunate result today, but looking forward towards Donington, so all the best with chatting to you today. All the best of luck heading in towards round 5.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too.
So that was Ian Skeen from Euro Titans Endurance. Back onto the action then here with Fade Galaxy. Of course, the recent news of that stop-go 30-second penalty has put a serious wrench in the works over his possibility of a top 5 finish here in the Nürburgring. Right now doing battle with Zolt Beefgartner, who we took note of the fact, and during our conversation there with Skeen, has had multiple smaller errors here. That Lexus heading in towards this last stint for him in today's race, this second and last stint in the case of the 599, is starting to notice a few teething issues on that new set of tyres. So result, this has been a very curious race at hand. He does stand the chances here of emerging on the podium by the end of today. He's only, as it stands there, you can see in the foreground, that's the number 1 Porsche of Cas van Velten. He's only 1.8 seconds out. If he can stitch up his performance just a little bit better here in the next couple of laps and start to work with the Lexus more so than wrestle it, we are definitely on the cards, I'd say, of seeing a fight for the lead between Porsche and Lexus. And as we heard there from Ian Skeen, the insight around the straight line speed, and of course we've seen it firsthand way back in season 2, just how effective in the top end that Lexus can be. Well, sadly we don't have the Porsche registered on here, but it does clock in at around 170 miles per hour in our speed testing. But of course you heard it there in kilometers an hour from Ian Skeen. And the bottom line, regardless of which system of measurement you're using, the Lexus is outrunning the Porsche on the straights. And as you heard there, upwards of 290 kilometers an hour on the downhill section through Antonios Bucher just after the Dottinger Hohe. So, as he mentioned there, if Beefgartner can get himself well within range, there is really not a great deal that Cas van Velten can do to hold off that Lexus. So, between now and the Dottinger Hohe, as we exit through to Muttkurve, on our second of 3 high-speed sections on this track, it is the case here for Cas van Velten, where he is really going to be praying he can put more of a distance up in the next 32 minutes. Up at the front of the field, glancing in to see here the Ferrari number 99 Hispania racing car of Elias de Vos, leading the rookies, certainly on for the chances of a rookies win today. But it's worth noting, how long is that stop in the pits going to take for him to keep himself away from Gabriel Lavuga, who has been quite the prominent challenger in the madness created in the rookie standings today. Speaking of the rookies, he's been holding on to that fastest lap for some time, is Jared Vermeulen. Standing in 3rd place. So there is a silver lining here, of course. In spite of the fact that 14 on his debut was looking at a knockout victory, could even stood at the chances to lead outright alongside the number 55 and number 1 of Fate Galaxy and Cas van Velten. Sadly, we'll have to wait until Donington Park to next make that point, but it has been a very strong open here from the number 14. Galaxy, I would like to point out, is still very close by, but ultimately their fight will be for naught, because that stop-go 30 has to be served in the next 2 laps. So he's not got a particularly great amount of time to play with here on that 599. I think the hopes are right now is that he can continue to pressure Zolt and force him to push that Lexus harder, because that's ultimately, as you can see right now, starting to diminish the gap between himself and Cas van Velzen. Was 1.8 seconds, now 2.5. For De Vos, he's 20 seconds up the road from any one other driver, that being the 315, as he makes his way onto the Dottinger. We're going to go and catch on board if we can then with either party in that fight. Up in the top 5 here, we see through Vansgarten 2. Alexis of Zolt Beefgartner of TSRC Esports back onto the grid after a bit of a hiatus after round 1 this season. He's back in for another solid performance with Lex, as you can see though. Really having to corral that car into form. 2.9, nearly 3 whole seconds away from the leading Porsche, soon to be leading Porsche I should say. But leading this fight for a provisional lead is Cas van Velzen. BMW in the slipstream. What can he make of it today? Alongside the Lexus, of course, these two very closely matched for top-end speed, so we'll see what Galaxy can do. Of course, he still has that stop-go to serve. That still will weigh heavy on him. The 315 of Alan Alexander is into the pit lane. The second place car now in. And you're starting to see that gap whittle down here. Nearly half a second having vanished in the gap between Van Velzen and Beefgartner. That is the fears right now surrounding both Van Velzen and Euro Titans when it comes to yet another win in this championship in order to try and keep themselves in the head of the field for the team's championship. For Van Velzen, much to the dismay of both Diesch and Vermaak, is going to be seeing a landslide return to leading form in Donington Park. Across the line goes the 55, still has 2 more laps here to serve that stop-go. He's side by side with Zolt Beefgartner. And we're perhaps seeing a bit of a sacrificial performance now from the 55, because you can see he's trying to get his elbows out a little bit more, because the idea right now is to get himself in between Beefgartner and Van Velzen and hold up that 599 to help the leading, or soon to be leading I should say, keep needing to make that point, number 1 of Van Velzen, because Elias de Vos has stayed out, so he is yet to come back into the full lead of this race. De Vos abstaining from coming back to the pits just yet. 28 minutes left to go here in the Nürburgring. Down through here to Dunlop. Up through the Schumacher S's, and that BMW's looking poised for a run on the inside down at Bit, but he stays away from it, so in towards Bit and Warsteiner. Otherwise, Kumo and Bit corner. Through to the Vidal. You see for the Lexus, much more confident in attacking those curbs. It's still a little bit of loose around the edge performance here on that Lexus for Zolt Beefgartner. You can see there has been several instances where he's had to fight the car more so than he would have expected here. I'd say right now we're geared up for what could be about 3 more laps worth of racing here at the Nürburgring before we wrap up our first ever visit to the Nordschleife in the Sunday League. Looking further down the field than to see where any other fights may be emerging from. Of course, one of the prominent fights going on so far is between a currently penalised 55 and the 599. We see there up in front over the nose of Fate Galaxy, just to quickly stay on board with these two, as that could have ended in tears for the 599 of Zolt Beefgartner. Heading up now towards Schwedenkreuz. Alexis still a little bit frayed around the edges there, down towards Arenberg. Runs a little deep there, the door's open for the 55 to come and swing on through, out through Poststrasse, now to the Fuchsrohr. But he is going to be to the outside, into that first part of the Fuchsrohr, and ultimately falls back in behind the Lexus of Zolt Beefgartner. Into the Adenauer Force we go. Up over the crest there, same area that we saw a huge wipeout from before from Leon Forberg in his fight with Elias de Vos for the lead of the rookies here in round 4. So going to check around the field then to see where other fights may be coming from, because right now it's all quiet here in the Nürburgring, bar that fight up at the front. As again, such has been a case more often than not at the Nordschleife, that battling quickly falters in the face of just pure survival for these drivers. So back on board was Holt Beefgartner. Currently then defending away third from Fate Galaxy. Heading up towards, looking here, I believe this is the run at Veersiphon. Rex Muller now to the asphalt right side. You can hear just faintly off in the distance. You can also see him just there in the wider shot. Was the Lamborghini of Gabriel Lavuga, who could, depending on how long these two are willing to battle side by side, could be invited in for his chances of an overall podium. Of course, this is bringing him ever closer to the prospect of overtaking Elias de Vos under strategy, but with de Vos still leading clear-cut by over 50 seconds in the point of view of Lavuga, it's going to be a tough one to match. He's making swift progress, though, to catch up with this ongoing fight for third between Beefgartner and Galaxy. Sonorous cry then of that 5.4 litre Lexus V8 as he scrapes the wall there, out through Mudkurve, and another bump of doors between these two as being able to go the long way around. That was too close for comfort between the 55 and the 599. Fate Galaxy goes up to third, of course still has that penalty to serve. Beefgartner drops then to fourth. Through to the carousel we go. See then for Beefgartner, after that overtake, hasn't overreacted there. Very easy thing we've seen at the Nordschleife is for drivers to get a little bit unsettled by overtakes. He's kept a relatively level head, of course still has plenty to deal with when it comes to just the car itself alone, as that Lexus has been more than an involving experience for him today here at the Nordschleife. Now he may also have to focus on a new threat from behind. Gabriel Lavuga, 1.8 seconds away, down in 5th place. And there could be the new threat in the next couple of laps here for one Brooklyn Donkin. Currently 7th in the race in the number 17 Euro Titans BMW. It's worth pointing out the gap is shrinking between himself and Jared Vermeulen from behind. Currently 3rd in the rookies. Making our way then up through Hohe Acht. As for Fate Galaxy, he's already hammered down in that BMW, knowing that his time spent here on the podium is only a temporary one with that penalty in play. We'll see what he chooses to do. Heading up in towards lap number 8. Currently 7 laps strong here at the Nürburgring, with 22.5 minutes left to go. Up in front of him, you can see the faint glimmer of green that is the number 1. The Manti EMA livery on the number 1 Porsche of Cas van Velzen of Euro Titans Endurance. Meanwhile, go to catch on board here if we can with the number 99. Elias de Vos, we're still expecting him to the pit lane. We'll see, does he choose to enact on such? Bear in mind, we are looking at the sights here of, by looks of things, I would say about 2, maybe 3 more laps left in this race after this one here. Into the pit lane goes Elias de Vos, so the Requiem knell is being rung now for the arrival of a possible overtake of the lead by Gabriel Lavuga. We'll see, though, has the efforts of the Lamborghini been in vain as the 99 comes into his pit box. They're looking to come to a stop not long from now. Meanwhile, for the rest of that top 5, they find themselves now along the Dottinger Hohe. Cas van Velzen short to return to the race lead, down through to Antonio Spucher, now Tiergarten. Not too long thereafter, Galaxy in pursuit. Beefgartner from behind, Lavuga not too far away from Beefgartner. All of them barreling down through, but right as it would appear off the jacks goes Elias de Vos. So there's certainly the chances here that Van Velzen will retake the race lead, but how far down the order does de Vos drop? After his strategy today, it was certainly an ambitious one here from the 99, looking for his first rookie's victory since Spa in the sprint race at the start of the season. And there we see trouble for Elias de Vos, a stop-go 30. So Gabriel Lavuga has seen the doors kicked open for the chances of a rookies division win today. The Austrian talent in the number 37 has just seen his fortunes flip in the blink of an eye. But don't get too comfortable yet. 20 minutes between you and the checkered flag as recent drama boils down to present both Fake Galaxy and Elias de Vos. Both components of the podium right now have to serve a stop-go 30-second penalty. Yellow flags were out momentarily, and now white flags are out for the 46 of Vladimir Malarek, but that is quickly cleared out before his entrance to the Nordschleife. As it stands to be the case then, Cas Van Velzen is back into the lead. We'll take a look here though, with Tyler Vermaak now back into fighting form. This is right now for the last of the top 10 positions on board with the McLaren of Tyler Vermaak, who we saw a gruesome wipeout from down at Tiergarten earlier in this race. I believe we still have that one on the replays here. If we go back to check it, I believe this was, yes, it is fight with Brooklyn Donkin down towards Tiergarten as he continues to fight right now with Nick Lamming. Went out wide and then flung up off of all four wheels, clatters the wall down at Tiergarten. That was a huge impact between the two. And in the time watching that live footage, he now down at Stahlstrecker gets up to 10th over Nick Lamming. A very troublesome day then for Tyler Vermaak, especially when one considers his championship prospects. Was leading the championship by, albeit only 6 points for the run-in towards today's round over what was that of Carlos Disch. With both of these two drivers much further down than they'd like, that drop point system couldn't have come in any sooner for those two. In the case of Carlos Disch, it'll see both his round 2 and round 4 results wiped away, still giving him what has so far been his only wins of the season, being in both the sprint and feature of round 1 at Spa and round 3 at Silverstone. In terms of Tyler Vermaak, that'll see his round 1 performance dropped away, and likelier than not to be the case of his round 3 performance. Sorry, it's round 1 and round 4, I should say, sorry. Dropped away as we head towards Donington. So there is still a bit of a silver lining as it stands to what's happened for them today, as Donington Park, when the drop point system continues to rake in more standings and more data to drop away, there's going to be a bit more of a fairer reflection of where their performance actually lands them on the championship charts. But it's been a very troublesome day because one driver who's going to be seeing plenty of advantage is going to be Cas Van Velzen. And I would say it's certainly on the cards that Van Velzen could be moving up into the... into the wall goes Tyler Vermaak! Oh my word, another wipeout for the number 8. He cleared up multiple seconds over Lamming. That should... oh no. Should that be the one that breaks the camel's back here? Can he get that car back to the pit lane? Oh, that's horrible. Oh no, and he's off at Schwalbenschwanz as well. Oh, that is horrific for the number 8. Into the wall there. I don't know if that car's in operable condition. We see here on board that steering system is royally screwed in there. I don't think that that is going to get into the pit lane. It's certainly going to be quite the task for him to get that car back into the paddock. Vermaak adamant to not see another DNF again in this championship, but this has been a very tough round for him. We were expecting bloodshed here at the Nürburgring. We were not expecting this much bloodshed. Vermaak now drops from the top 10. You can see his car barely staying straight there down the Dottinger as he limps towards the pit lane. Meanwhile, for Cas Van Velzen, he's back into leading form in the number 1 Porsche. Galaxy in second with a stop-go. And now, as it stands to be the case, Elias de Vos still holds that third with a stop-go, but approaching from behind here, you can see Isolt Beefgartner. So Beefgartner is getting closer and closer to what is going to be that lead of the race. Bear in mind, though, he's still about over 5 seconds out from Cas van Velzen. When you consider the gap between first and fourth, those two cars in front of him, Galaxy and De Vos, both will need to come into the pits very shortly, especially in the case there of Galaxy. I believe he only has this lap now to serve it on the penultimate lap of today's race. Though in saying that, I still said there was about 2, maybe 3 more laps, so let's see exactly how far that's willing to go. And considering we're about halfway through, we've got about 16 minutes left, I'd say we have got the overlap for just one more go here at the Nürburgring before the end of today's race. So 2 more laps expectant from Van Velzen. He's on this one at the moment. He's got 2 more possibly in the bookings here before the end of round 4. New fight emerging then. Vermeulen v Donkin. Out through Mudkurve. And now up in towards 7th goes Jared Vermeulen. Still holds that rookie's 3rd. And he could even see rookie's 2nd, to the dismay of Elias de Vos in the wall from behind him. That's Brooklyn Donkin. Down through Klostertal. Has that been enough to reduce that car to the pit lane? No, as it would appear he is still soldiering on out through Stylestrekker. But in the closing 20 minutes of this race, we have seen many a casualty. First off, we saw from Tyler Vermack, who's now back into the paddock, fortunate to say, there for the number 8. Albeit in a still not great state of repair, or disrepair, I should say, but it is definitely a lot better than what we saw in his last visit to the paddock. And now we've recently seen trouble there. Now compounded front-end damage for Brooklyn Donkin. We see that Elias de Vos is under siege now from Zolt Beefgarner. So let's go to catch on board here if we can with the Lexus. We see that Van Velzen leads by only about a second here over Fake Galaxy. There certainly could have been the argument made over a fight for the race lead between these two had it not been for that stop-go 30-second penalty. Down through to Flansgarten Svei. On with Zolt Beefgarner in hot pursuit of that podium, away from Elias de Vos, down to Schwabenschwanz. Meanwhile, I am getting information to hand here. Fake Galaxy could very likely see an overtake here on Cas van Velzen. You can see these two right along with one another. And as that stands to be the case, he's being let on through by Van Velzen. And this is for the reason why it's slipstream. It's very cheeky what they're doing here. Nothing illegal about it, but we do get to see this was a very tactical decision to try and reinforce Cass's victory. Fake Galaxy knows that his day in today's race is effectively over with that stop-go 30. It's going to drop him down through the order, possibly out of the top 5 entirely. But he's used the last of those moments to give some slipstream over to his teammate who he knows needs it. And after his support fades, there is nothing right now, as we now get to see, getting up past the 99, there will be nothing left to stand in the way between Beefgarner and Van Velzen for these next 2 laps. We see then Fake Galaxy has played the team game, but he's staying out. I mean, what's going on here for him? Down across the line, I'm pretty sure, yes, he's disqualified from the race. Fake Galaxy dropped from the standings. Elias de Vos is in to the pit lane there. It's a somber thing to think of about for Fake Galaxy. Of course, he has transferred to BMW. He's already lost a great chunk of his points, but he still stood ground to possibly gain some and get back up through the order. For Galaxy, though, that's the end of the road. Disqualified from round 4. Beefgarner, 8.8 seconds from Van Velzen. 2 more laps left to go. Gabriel Lavuga now leads the rookies for Lamborghini, 3rd overall. Alan Alexander now moves to 4th, up and ahead of Elias de Vos. And as we see for Jared Vermeulen, a silver lining to the dark cloud over today's performance. Now sees the South African talent to 2nd in the rookies, up to the top 5. Not for nothing that he's persevered after a disastrous opening lap in wet conditions at the Nords. A very eventful race today. Oh my word, I have some very concerning news here, folks. Very concerning news. We've just had a glance at the weather radar. Rain is coming in 10 minutes. There is a definite looming sense of dread upon today's grid now. Because rain could be... And here's the thing. We don't know when the intervals are recorded. So it's just saying 10 minutes now. That could be 10 minutes, 9 minutes ago. Anywhere between now and the end of the race, it is going to start raining again. We are going to... Oh. Do bear with us. We'll be back in a moment. We are currently investigating a red flag condition at the moment. We are just quickly convening with race control. We'll have more information, hopefully, to you within the next couple of minutes. Your attention to the screens, please. We are under red flag conditions. We've just been given the word forward from race control. The results as of the last completed lap, so the one that we just saw there, are going to be the ones counted towards the final result today. That's going to be worked on by race control. They'll have some more information to that in the next couple of hours, if not in the next day or two. As it stands right now, with only about a lap or two left to go, the session has been red flagged. We are now at the end of round 4. As it stands to be the case, Cas van Velzen looks to be the winner of that event. And until instructed otherwise, I would consider that as the win of the event. And also for the rookies, it would likely be the case then for Gabriel Lavuga of Lamborghini. Not an eventful way for things to end here, but unfortunately, we are not going to be restarting a server just for 2 laps worth of racing, as much as it would seem entertaining to do so. It does disqualify a lot of what the drivers have already been through today. From what I've been told from race control, we are not seeing any subtractions to the amount of points dished out, as we were beyond 75% of the total racing length. So it's a very unfortunate way for the race to end. And we apologize in advance. That also means that sadly we won't be conducting the interviews. We mentioned earlier today that we would be opening up the new interview panel. Given the current way that the race has ended today, we think that it is in the best interest to not do that and instead roll it out for Donington Park. So our apologies here from TRTN, but that's unfortunately, as it stands, from the word I've been given, the end of today's race. So still very well done to Van Velzen and Lavuga, who I think provisionally right now are the race winners. We'll still wait for full confirmation of that from race control, so do take a lot of what I've just said there with a grain of salt. That's the end of the road from us here on TRTN. Unfortunate the way that it's gone, but what a race it has been nonetheless. Our first ever visit to the Nordschleife may not have ended, but it certainly did start the way we were expecting it to. But still a fantastic race. Plenty of events going on there. Plenty of different moments of action, but this is unfortunate, really. But yeah, That's all from us here on TRTN. Not the way we hope for things to end. If you're joining us on Tuesday evening, that's when our next event is. We go live for TRC Sprint Cup EU Season 6 Round 1. And later on in the week, we'll have GT4 Pro-Am Cup America, as well as the new Porsche Super Cup from Orange Line Racing X VSR. A brand new joint venture project with an old and new client as we head in towards a brand new championship coming this Friday. That's all from us here on TRTN. We're sorry that this is the way it had to end today. Out of our control, out of Race Control's control either. This is one of those things that you just can't fight, sadly. That's the end of today's session. Very well done to the race winners. That's all from us. Take care.